Imagine you are an ordinary high school senior Seiji Managi who is just trying to survive another boring lecture. Our guy is one of those legends who thinks that today is the perfect day for a nap right in the middle of class. But his sleep is interrupted by a mysterious trembling and a whisper of a voice about a blessing. He suddenly opens his eyes, but instead of a desk, he is surrounded by a cloud of flying bubbles. Nagi panics. He realizes that he is already deep underwater, and he urgently needs to reach the surface before he drowns. He tries to move, but his arms and legs do not obey at all, and a huge fish is staring intently at him. He understands, and in a shock revelation it dawns on him, this is not just a glitch. He has literally become the water itself. His vision expands. He gets an overview from above the entire site, as if looking through a drone. A rapid avalanche of information begins to build up in his head, as if he is downloading the entire wiki of the world into himself. He realizes he has been reincarnated as the great water spirit, and now this vast lake surface is his true body. Several days pass while he tries to process in his head that his human life has officially ended. Honestly, being a lake is a total vibe. The sun warms and stress is zero. Strange animals begin to visit his shores. For example, this horned rabbit, like a rare gotcha pull. He understands that his water is high-tier loot, because it can heal any injury or illness. Suddenly, the calm atmosphere breaks. The local fauna senses something approaching. Two human children appear, and Nagi realizes these are the first humans he has seen in this new world. The children carry a basket of healing herbs, but it is clear they are too scared to use them. The boy Lumen prays to the lake and asks, "Great Spirit, heal our mother's illness." They gathered all the herbs they could find, hoping for a miracle from the lake. Tension rises as a giant wing wolf emerges from the thicket. It looks like a boss of the highest level. This monster is terrifying. Rows of sharp teeth and wings clearly indicate this is not some ordinary trash mob. The children choke on sweat as the wolf lunges forward to grab them. Nagi does not hesitate and calls a giant water vortex to protect the children. He watches from a liquid perspective. His power effortlessly blocks the predator. Nagi is shocked. He can control water without any delay just by the power of thought. He realizes that looking like a giant piece is suspicious, so he begins to twist his human silhouette out of himself. He flows into a steep figure in a hood, and water falls around him in radiant streams. He even sews stylish clothes from lake water so as not to look like a complete weirdo. "You're already okay," he says, reaching out his hand to the trembling children. The children choke with relief so much that they simply fall and hug their savior. When they look at the mountain ridge, the boy asks, who are you?" Nad chooses to keep his old name and introduces himself. He is the spirit of the lake. The children's eyes literally spark. They have never seen such powerful magic before. Nagi keeps a facade of calm, admitting that he just got this job. He uses a small ball of water to touch the girl's face where there was a nasty wound. The wound disappears instantly. This proves that he has S-rank healing abilities. The girl shines and shouts to him, "Naj, you are incredible." But just as he prepares to make a desperate request, the boy's face becomes stern. "Please help my mother," he begged, lowering his head, tears rolling down his cheeks. Nagi gently patted the child on the head and reassured everything will be fine. He forces the children to promise to keep his existence a complete secret from the rest of the world. He fills their vial with his concentrated healing waters, promising that it will cure their mother. Now that the forest is teeming with dangerous monsters, he decides that they need a bodyguard. He creates a small jumper water spirit to accompany them home. A system window Nagipedia appears, explaining how it works. This is not just magic. Powerful spirits can create familiars of the same attribute to be their eyes and ears. The boy feels a mysterious presence coming from the little spirit. It corresponds to Naga's power. Nagi names the little one Lu and asks the children to befriend him. They wave goodbye and return to their village with their new companion. Nagi decides that with the human body, that's all, and dissolves again into the depths. He quietly hovers among the plants, enjoying the peaceful life of a spirit. The night sky is reflected on the surface, and he finally begins to feel at home. But his peace shatters into fragments. A new, even more desperate cry for help rolls through the water like an echo. A family of dark elves appears on the shore looking as if they had to go through a real war. The father, covered in wounds, pleadingly stretches out, "Please save this child." Nagi immediately directs a stream of healing water straight into the dying child's mouth. The boy's eyes suddenly open wide and life returns to him in an instant. Their wounds disappear, and the spirit power mercifully moves the family to tears. Nad uses her Nagipedia to find information about these newcomers. The system explains, dark elves have a high affinity with spirits and are usually able to see them. However, in this world, humans are stupid fools who see dark elves as enemies. Although they actually oppose the demon race, humans still treat them like monsters. Nagi speaks to them from the water, saying they don't need to be so formal. The elves are stunned to hear the voice of the Great Spirit directly. Nagi tells them that they can live near the lake as long as they promise not to pollute the water. The family is filled with gratitude and thanks him for his kindness. They introduce themselves. Etna, his wife Lena, and their son Hilio. And just like that, Nagi gets his first group of permanent neighbors. A month passes, and Nagi spends time wondering how the human children are doing. He visits them through the familiar loss of sight he knows. He sees the children and their mother happy and healthy at home and feels like a hero. He still does not know the exact reason why he was called to this world. But he understands, if he can use this S-rank power to save people, that will be enough as a purpose. He vows to save everyone he can reach. Nagi suddenly appears from the lake to chat with Etna and she is surprised to see him. Etna tells him that since they arrived, no one has suffered serious injuries. He is constantly busy planting seeds on the fertile lands around the lake. I'm waiting for this, Neji says with a smile. But then a distorted voice rings in the head, calling for help. Neji asks Etna if she heard anything, but the elf is completely unaware. The voice grows louder, a desperate plea to the Great Spirit for help for someone's only family. Suddenly, a giant magical circle tears the ground beneath Neji's feet. He is forcibly pulled into a swirling vortex, water and light mixed within it, and he disappears completely. Where was our boy taken and who is pulling the strings now? Neji wakes up in a strange place and cannot understand where he is at all after being pulled through the mysterious magical circle. It turned out that he was summoned, and it was done by a barely audible voice begging for help. He finds himself trapped in a tight dark cage, surrounded by a bunch of frightened children. The thought immediately strikes him. This is not just a prison, it is a cage for living merchandise. One little half-elf girl, in deadly despair, prays to the Great Spirit to save her brother Rudo. Neji realizes, although she is half-elf and usually cannot summon spirits, her pure heart still reached him. Before her he appears and solemnly declares, I have come in response to your call. I am Nagi, the Great Spirit of the Lake. Sees the child unconscious on the floor and understands. His new healing abilities are the only thing that can save the boy. The girl, Yona, begged him to save only her family and even promised to give everything she has in return. Nagi sees Rudo on the brink of death and understands that he was called precisely because of the connection with the healing power. Moved by Yona's strength and kind heart, he immediately decides to fulfill her wish without any hesitation. A seal mark of agreement with the light spirit flashes on her hand, marking their new bond. With this, the contract is considered complete. He smiles and is already ready to get to work. Nagi places his hand on Rudo's head and directs a wave of restorative energy into his body. In a moment, the iron shackles that bound the child shatter like glass as the healing magic gains strength. Other children from beastfolk to elves are completely stunned. Their shackles have disappeared. Rudo finally opens his eyes and raises his gaze to his sister, as if checking whether he is dreaming. Naga's heart melts when he sees this reunion, but he knows he cannot just leave the rest of these children in this neglected dump. He says, we will escape from here, although his hands tremble at the thought of taking on an entire group of orphans. One of the children with ears asks if escape is even possible, and Nagi reassures him. As long as he is here, everything will be fine. But suddenly guards from the garbage mob appear and shout at the kids, scolding them for the noise. As soon as they notice Nagi, they are struck with paralysis. They are gripped by a repulsion that presses down and a feeling of power. These dumb ducks treated the children like trash, and Naga's aura has already started making the whole room vibrate. One of them even pulls out a knife and asks if Nagi really thinks he can challenge them. Naga's eyes grow cold as he listens to their threats, and he quietly calls them pieces of trash. But the guard doesn't even have time to recover. Nagi manipulates the moisture in the air and throws him back with a high-pressure stream of water. The guards are already panicking, shouting stay away while Nagi's water magic begins to swirl around him. He mocks them and asks if they would believe him if he said he was a great spirit. Nagi is no longer joking. He summons colossal liquid hands that cover the attackers like giants. He clenches his fist. The water reacts without any delay, crushing the opponents. He creates a bloody vortex that knocks the guards off their feet, and they completely curl up on the stone floor. Bandits lie twitching in puddles, and Nagi looms over them like an absolute machine. When the immediate threats have passed, he takes the keys from the guard and unlocks the rest of the cells for the other children. New reinforcements arrive. They call him a mage and insist that they are part of legitimate slavery. Nagi instantly stops this, telling them that he is not a mage but a spirit. He pointed a finger at the main freak and declared that he came to save the children from this filth like them. He lets the water speak for him, washing away the guards with a giant tidal wave. Nagi gives them one last terrible warning. If from now on you continue to enslave children, there will be no next time. The remaining guards are so frightened that they almost stumble over their own feet to escape. Our guy leads the children out of the dungeon and finally they reach the surface, seeing the sun again. They find themselves in a giant city and Nagi suddenly realizes he has no idea where he is or how to return to his lake. To make matters worse, the boy's stomach rumbled and he suddenly understood. People actually have to eat. He checks his inventory and realizes he has 0 gold, so nothing to buy for supplies. He rushed into the bakery, but the shopkeeper became wary. The one traveling with a whole gacha collection of different races looked suspicious. Nagi panics and rushes into a crazy story. Supposedly, all these children are his half-brothers, and he is happy because they have finally reunited. He immediately regrets getting carried away like that, and this baker lady was so moved to tears by his fabricated story. She gives the children as much bread as they can eat for free, reminding Nagi, there are villains in the world, but there are also good people. After taking the snacks, Nagi learns that they are in the city of Ilmus far to the south of the kingdom of Ruganas. He needs a quick way to rake in some currency, so the baker advises he should look towards a merchant or craftsman. But Nagi notices the Travelers Guild and decides that the fastest way to get his bag is to clear a quest. He enters the guild and sees a request board. He thinks this is the perfect way to quickly earn some cash. He approaches the counter with the group and asks the receptionist to register him as a traveler. On the form, he keeps everything simple. Nagi, race, human, occupation, mage, skill, water, magic. He receives an official ID, starting from the lowest level 10th class. To keep everything calm, he takes a simple task of gathering herbs, one that seems safe enough for the children to go with him. And just as he was about to leave, a group of elite adventurers burst in. They carried a wounded comrade on stretchers. The guild raises an alarm. The party was attacked by a basilisk. Nagi knows wounds from a basilisk carry a nasty curse that prevents ordinary treatment from working. Yona looks at the dying elf Philly and in a pleading tone asks Nagi to help her. Nagi sighs and tells her to leave it to him, although he really did not want to stand out today. He approaches the unconscious elf and discreetly pours some magically infused water into her mouth. The crowd is still in panic because of the basilisk, but the curse is already being washed away by Naga's divine-level magic. He tells the children to relax and advises them to finish their heraldic targeting while everyone is distracted by the miracle. Philly wakes up feeling fully restored and tells her commanders that from the very first moment she opened her eyes, she felt a divine presence. She realizes this is not just her imagination and looks around the room searching for her savior. She notices Nagi leaving the building and runs after him, shouting for him to wait a moment. She catches up with him in the alley and bows deeply with profound gratitude for saving her life. Nagi tries to deflect it as a joke, but she looks at him intently without any evasions. She drops a bomb right there, asks him, "Are you the great spirit of water?" It seems the secret identity of our guy was leaked in record time. Philly is in shock, frozen, staring into Naga's gaze, and finally realizes the truth. She bluntly asks point blank if he really is the great water spirit. Before he can answer, the rest of the squad gone and Shani Eyes rush forward to drag her back to bed. She is still recovering. They try to reason logically, but Philadelphia's elven senses are already ringing, and Nagi starts to sweat under the pressure of being about to be exposed. Finally, our guy simply accepts his fate and throws out confirmation, causing Philly to have a full fangirl meltdown. She is so overwhelmed that she was literally saved by a deity that she almost vibrates with tension. Nagi manages to catch her before she falls, but the moment is interrupted by a new opponent who steps onto the stage. It is an old man, Yushin, the guild leader, and he has been eavesdropping on this revelation the whole time. He understands that such a huge lore drop cannot be dumped in the hallway, so he invites the whole group back to the guild for a private conversation. As soon as they settle in the VIP lounge, the atmosphere becomes oppressive. The reality of what happened catches up with everyone. Yushin bows low, showing Nagi great respect for having protected one of his best adventurers. Our guy begins to tell them how this whole journey started when some boy called him. He breaks down the entire sequence of events step by step from the rescue to the current state. Yushin simply breathed a sigh of relief. The children were pulled out of that nightmare completely safely. But Philadelphia got stuck on one detail, that a half-elf could summon a great spirit. That's just madness. According to the lore, only high elves have such a volume of mana. This thought hits Yana hard, and she looks as if the weight of the whole world is on her shoulders. To show gratitude, Yushin extends a huge bag of gold for travel expenses. Nagi is stunned. He had no idea how much influence the title Great Spirit actually grants in this world. Yushin effectively gives him a blank check for anything he might need. When night falls over the city, the guild building towers under the stars. The streets are quiet, and Nagi watches over the children while they finally get a proper sleep. He sincerely thanks that it never occurred to you to arrange such first-class housing for them. Suddenly, Yuna approached him. She looked completely exhausted. He asks if she has trouble falling asleep, and she again bows her head, thanking him. And in her eyes darkness as she tries to find the words. She is actually apologizing for being the one who called him, feeling that someone like her does not deserve to have such a powerful connection. She clutches her chest. It is clear that she was hurt not only by words. After years of being treated like trash, her well-being and self-esteem have suffered. Nagi understands. Trauma from her past made her feel unworthy of his protection. Her anxiety over someone else's shock breaks his heart. She literally trembles with guilt, convinced that she is a burden. And Nagi barely touches her head and says that she has nothing to apologize for. He reminds her she is his contractor and it was she who brought him here. He even finishes her off with a tasty truth. He says he is glad she called him because it gave him a chance to see the outside world. That is exactly what she needed to hear, and she breaks down in tears of pure relief. Their moment is interrupted by a knock on the door. It's Philly. She apologizes for the nighttime interruption, and she carries an urgent message directly from the guild. Nagi has a feeling that he definitely knows what it is about. The travelers step forward, promising to guard the children at the cost of their own lives while Nagi settles his affairs. He turns to Yona and says that he needs to step out for a bit. And he leaves and she looks shattered by his departure. Her eyes fill with fear that he might not return. To seal everything, Nagi makes a pinky promise, swearing on his honor that he will return. This promise finally gives her a genuine smile. Under the glow of the full moons, Nagi sneaks into the deep forest. The forest seems eerie, and he feels a huge presence lurking in the shadows. It doesn't take long before he tracks his target. A huge basilisk awaits him. Returning to the guild, Yushin explained, "This monster is a complete nightmare with an almost indestructible body." Nagi has already put the puzzle together, realizing that this is the same beast that earlier forced Philly's team to retreat. The scouts reported something even worse. They found a second one, a female who is about to give birth. These two basilisks are heading to the town to find a place to feed, and the guild is offering a 20 million gold reward for their heads. Yushin literally begged Nagi on his knees to let Pelagro save the town. And Nagi does it not only for the money. He knows if he does not intervene, innocent people will be slaughtered. Yushin is so excited that he promises to tell Naga's legend to every future generation. Returning to the present time, Nagi prepares for the hunt. Two huge creatures resembling prehistoric basilisks emerge from behind the trees, and it seems they are already ready to smash skulls. The basilisk freezes with its gaze on the prey, its eyes emit deadly pressure. The boy understands. His petrifying, angry look in this human form does not work, so he decides to rebuild himself for a high-stakes tournament, a boss fight. He begins to manifest a colossal amount of mana, transforming into a majestic water dragon because he needs an even more powerful form. He bursts through the air without any lag, leaving behind a shimmering water trail. He hovers over the forest and mocks, "If he has to fight, then let it be in a cool-looking form." The two basilisks realize they have drawn the attention of something far beyond their power. A giant dragon looms over them. They try to look threatening, but it is clear. Their hands tremble and sweat pours from them at this level of power. Nagi gives them no chance to recover, unleashes a devastating breath attack that completely clears the hall. An energy beam hits one of the snakes right in the mouth, instantly crushing its defense. An incredible amount of mana frightens. It flashes with a blinding glare and illuminates the entire forest. The explosion tears a crater in the ground and leaves the surrounding soil crumpled. Even Nagi steps back a little from the destruction, acknowledging that the power is greater than he expected. One of the basilisks tries to apologize while his companion is blown to pieces, but Nagi is not going to let them go so easily. The remaining snake lacks patience, it screams, "But I cannot let you escape," so it delivers the final blow. She creates a huge water vortex, trying to trap our guy in a liquid prison. The water boils and rages wildly as the basilisk pours everything it has into the spell. When the fog clears, Nagi is human again and walks to the fallen beast with an expression as if it didn't affect him at all. The giant basilisk is officially out of the game, lying motionless on the forest floor. He reaches out to touch the scales and make sure the kill is really done. He notices there is another woman with a swollen belly and quietly whispers, "Sorry," while the guild leader looks at this with an expression of complete shock. Nagi calmly says that the request has been fulfilled, not knowing that a guild member is lurking in the shadows of the trees. Despite everything, our guy has top-notch attentiveness, casually orders the hidden scout to retrieve the corpse. The guild member is stunned by Naga's stealth and speed as he prepares to return to the city. Returning to the guild office, the boss cannot keep calm. He had no idea the quest could be cleared so quickly. He falls to his knees in a deep bow, thanks Nagi for saving the city, and extends a huge pile of gold. Nagi looks at the loot and cannot believe what an incredible amount it is. And the main trap of the win is the next gift, an item box bag which allows carrying an infinite amount of baggage. Nagi is truly impressed by its usefulness and immediately understands. Now he can collect and store as many items as he wants. The old man is not finished, yet pulls out another reward. It is an official plaque confirming Nagi has already become a fourth-class traveler. Nagi looks at the rank in surprise and the boss explains. Nagi truly deserves first class, but fourth is the highest rank he is allowed to issue right now. Outside, the guild staff is already loading a huge dragon onto a cart for a full evaluation. Nagi nods and politely thanks for everything as he gets ready to leave. He grabs his new magical bag and wonders, should he go straight back to the lake? When the sun sets over the town, Nagi begins to piece together troubling hints from the old story. He knows basilisks usually live far from people, so he wonders why they are coming so close to the city. He freezes in place and asks himself, Did someone deliberately move them to provoke a crisis? For a moment he stands alone on the street and feels a bigger conspiracy is rising somewhere. His dark thoughts are interrupted by what he sees. Philly and the children are waiting for him in front of the tavern. They couldn't wait for him to return and insisted on meeting him personally. The children look at him with pure admiration, shouting, "Lord Neji, welcome home." Our guy finally barely smiles in response, "I'm home." He is literally swarmed by a crowd of children in sincere hugs, a warm group shower. He orders them to get ready. Tomorrow, they start the journey to his lake. He describes the lake as a peaceful paradise where dark elves live happily. He is confident that the children will adapt quickly. After all, they have all gone through similar trials. Philadelphia and her company watch from the side, and it is clear that they have something on their minds. Philly approaches him, and her voice softens as she says she is simply glad that he returned safe and sound. She says that they owe him a debt of gratitude, and they will never be able to truly repay it. Taking a breath, she says, "Lord Nagi, I have a request." She asks if her entire squad can accompany him on the journey. She explains that she wants to repay his kindness by serving him. Other guys catch up behind, promising to help and protect the city and the children. The children are elated, laughing and shouting because their older sister is going with them. Nagi notices the children have fully warmed up to their group. Philadelphia and the guys bow low and humbly ask his permission to join. Nagi extends his hand and accepts the invitation, thanking them for the offer. "Now I will count on you," he says with a gentle smile. Philadelphia looks as if it has just won the lottery, faces flash with joy. For now, the team is preparing until the end of the day. They stopped by the local tailor for new gear. The children look extremely cute in their new travel outfits. The townspeople gather around to say goodbye, and one woman even squeezes Nagi in tearful hugs for saving their lives. Philly and the team stand ready by the wagon, looking like a true adventure gang. Nagi receives the final heavy payment for the basilisk materials. Yashin, the guild leader, comes out personally to see them off. He tells Nagi to come anytime and promises even bigger celebrations for her next visit. Nagi jumps on the cart and asks if everyone is ready to go. With the final shout, "All right, let's go," the group sets off to the lake to start a new life. The squad officially set off from Ilmus to the lake, making their way through the dense forest, while some mysterious bird watches from the darkness. Honestly, it's touching how the children are so excited by the landscapes as they head to the next point, the city of Ronin. While they are on the road, Gandon and Shauna's harness themselves like tank commanders, teaching the little ones the basics of self-defense. Meanwhile, Nagi checks the magical talent and sees Yona and Rut are essentially already prepared elite units by the end. He begins to show them how to control the elements, helping to unlock their spirit magic potential. Philadelphia and our guy behave like proud parents, teaching the kids the basics while they camp under the stars. Now he just hopes for a comfortable bed as soon as they enter the city, but the gods of setbacks are definitely not on his side today. As soon as they roll up to the local tavern, the manager immediately cuts them off at the entrance and shouts, "Sorry, everything is full today, look somewhere else." It turns out Ronin is packed to the brim, and they have officially scoured the whole week, failing at every spot in the city. Even on Gandon and Shanna's faces are traces of an exhausting dungeon run after failing to find even one manor for rent. This is a complete dead end, and the team begins to realize that urban hospitality has simply vanished. And despite everything, Yona tries to keep up bravely, telling Lord Nagi that they will sleep just fine in the dirt like a pack of ordinary rank and file. Just as they are about to surrender, some local boy starts snooping around nearby and hangs around them as if trying to disrupt the aggro. The team instantly switches to combat mode. It even looks like they are ready to take down anyone who dares to approach. But it turns out to be just a scared child who swears he is not suspicious at all. Nagi realizes the team is too tense, so he eases the tension, explains that they are just travelers and don't know the local layout. The boy's face lights up and he offers to lead them to a secret place. He shouts, "Follow me." Philadelphia is completely and understandably sweating with fear, because she is following a random NPC into a dark alley. But Nagi gives her the same smile of the main heroine and a promise, "I will protect you if things go sideways." The rest of the party is moved to tears. They practically swear their lives to him, and honestly, that's a lot even for our guy. The boy leads them all the way to the outskirts, and finally stops near a building that looks completely secluded. They are greeted by a kind-hearted woman named Marina. She welcomes them despite the enormous size of the whole group. She tells them not to worry, they have plenty of bedding. It turns out this place is an orphanage run by the religion of Sarah. They are dedicated to saving the weak and helping those in need. Nagi feels a bit guilty for crashing into the charity house, but he understands. It is necessary to ensure that the children guests do not feel threatened by the whole pack of equipped adventurers. He tries to act casually, introduces himself to the team as harmless travelers. Nagi explains that the children with them are refugees seeking a safe place to live. Yona steps forward and delivers a heart-wrenching speech. She tells the other orphans that Lord Nagi and the rest are good people who truly care about them. She promises that they will be obedient children if only they stay for one night. Yona's brave behavior for the sake of the whole group cuts Nagi to the heart. The local children immediately fall in love with this idea. They beam huge smiles and welcome their new friends. Nagi gives Yona a light pat on the head for a job well done. Philadelphia shines with pride and thanks Yona for the courage to say what she thinks. The entire squad bows to Marina and officially asks for shelter for the night. Nagi did not intend to be a freeloader, so he gave a heavy bag of goldon that any gacha cat would envy green with jealousy. Marina is stunned by the amount, but Nagi insists this is a fair exchange for her kindness. With funding in hand, Marina goes all out and prepares a real feast as if she was just brought out from a high-class tavern. Philadelphia pitches in to help with cooking, making sure everyone is fed. At lunch, Marina admits most of the orphanage staff have run off to better and higher-paying jobs, so now she is carrying everything on her own. Nagi asks about religion to Sarah, and Marina explains that they focus on helping those in need. She says their faith is based on the goddess of water, and the water spirits the kings who will come. This is a huge lore drop for Nagi after all. She is practically the king of the water spear, whom these people follow and honor. He sits there trembling with sweat, constantly fidgeting in place while everyone praises their own divine aura. When Marina notices he has stopped eating, she asks if he is already full. She reveals that she is saving the leftovers so the children can eat properly when everyone returns tomorrow. The orphans are so inspired by her dedication that they vow to work twice as hard to help. Marina is moved to tears by their support. She understands that she is not fighting this alone. Nagi watches this sincere moment and suddenly realizes he must act because he is their true little god. Late that night, Marina prays to the king of spirits, begging for protection. Megi decides that it's time to intervene. He begins to manifest his powered drops of water swirl in the air. Marina is completely confused, barely able to comprehend that a great spirit appears in her room. Nagi, acting through the water spirit, tells her that he was deeply moved by her selfless deeds. He presents her with a spirit stone, a high-level artifact worth a fortune. He tells her that his wish is for children to be happy and urges her to sell the stone. Marina cannot believe her luck. She bows low and asks how she can ever repay such divine mercy. Nagi's message is simple: protect the children and love them, that is your reward. The next morning, Nagi and his team prepare to depart. He says one last encouraging word to Marina and orders her to continue doing everything in her power. As they leave, Marina looks as if she has had a full stat reset. She is brighter and more determined than ever. Nagi approaches the crew and checks what the next step will be. Gon and Shannis clear up hooks in the guild. They check the weather and watch to ensure no evil monsters lurk on the roads. They even manage to get a manor for the next 3 days, so the team can finally rest in luxury. And just when it seems everything is settling down, that terrible raven from the past begins to watch Nagi closely from the trees. The bird actually spoke and said that we will meet very soon. Nagi was completely confused, not understanding what kind of strange entity this was. The raven flies off and disappears toward a mysterious room, where a hidden figure watches everything that is happening. This mysterious boss watches Nagi through a crystal ball, showing that he knows his greatest secret. He is a reincarnator from Japan. Nagi and Gon were investigating the path to the lake when everything suddenly went awry. The guild buzzes with rumors. Along the route, monsters are becoming too aggressive. The mood becomes even heavier when they recall that a black dragon was spotted over the neighboring city. This is not just some trash crowd. Dragons are noble creatures who almost never show themselves to humans. Gon understands, if he leaves now, it will be a huge risk for the children under their care. Suddenly, the guild staff calls everyone to attention near the bulletin board. The secretary looks as if she has thermometers all over her body when announcing a surge in monster activity. After a full investigation, they found out it is much worse than they thought. This is not a minor skirmish. They are facing a monster that caused a massacre or a critical crush. To stop the city from folding, the guild calls all adventurers rank 5 and above to take the front line. They promise a fat pile $100,000 in damages to everyone who joins the subjugation squad. Nagi does not hesitate and immediately asks Gon if he agrees to stand in the front ranks. He tells the others to stay behind and keep the children safe while they take on the hard work. Yan naturally worries that Nagi will rush into the fire. But Nagi simply gives him a calm MC smile and says that this is the only way to clear the path for their journey. He is effectively speedrunning these tasks so that everyone else feels safe. They head to the registration zone. A huge crowd of players has already gathered there. Nagi notices Frio and Elf, who is extremely sensitive to the crazy aura of the spirit that Nagi emits. They are intercepted by a 4th-rank pilot named Fail. He is clearly ready to escalate aggression. Nagi introduces himself as a rank 4 water mage, although everyone already knows. His stats are actually off the charts. Guildmaster Jild steps onto the stage and demands absolute silence. He warns anyone who cannot keep their mouth shut must immediately leave the lobby. The heat in the room suddenly dissipates, the atmosphere becomes icy as everyone waits for the reveal. He drops a bomb and the Adantiator rushes straight toward the city. Just one name and experienced adventurers are swept by a wave of panic. It is a beast, a dragon subspecies, 10 meters of pure aggression, known as the gluttonous demon that crawls on the ground. This is the level of threat that already drives all other monsters out of this territory. A defensive line must be set up to stop this tank before it reaches the residential quarters. Jill admits, although it is slow, if the boundary is broken through, the damage will be irreversible. Heavyweights begin to introduce themselves. Narj rank 2 spearbearer who looks like a complete machine. And then we have twins Luo and Neo, who fill the roles of doctor and magical fencer. Frio tries to introduce himself, but this guy is really trembling as if even his boots are shaking. He is a spirit magic user, and now he is overwhelmed with fear just from being near Naga's presence. The Guildmaster distributes reconnaissance reports to the squad so they can start theory-crafting. Character First Iron Gate Reform School. Everyone takes a sheet to study the boss's combat patterns. Nagi and his new team review the data and realize, this will not be easy, it won't be figured out so simply. Narj steps forward and suggests they choose a raid leader right now. The group agrees they need someone with high status and charisma to prevent them from being wiped out. Most veteran adventurers are too nervous to take the helm. The rest of the team picks up the play. Narj checks if anyone has objections, especially considering there is a rank 1 player in the room. Narj is officially appointed raid leader with applause. Nagi is actually eager to see how these high-level adventurers will coordinate. He decides to keep his true power in the shadows until the situation turns into a full emergency. When the meeting breaks up, Narge reminds everyone, the real fight starts tomorrow. Frio, still in fan ecstasy over Nagi, offers to host the group at his home. Nagi tries to politely decline because his friends are already waiting for him. But Frio insists that he bring the whole team to his huge mansion. When they return, Philly simply loses it because Nagi signed up for a suicidal mission. Han just shrugs, understanding that he couldn't stop Naga's sincere eyes even if he really wanted to. Right then, Frio and Fail appear at the door to escort our guy to the mansion. Nagi explains the situation to Philly, introduces him to the new comrades. Fail is simply happy to be going with everyone. Frio truly feels a deep honor that a person of Naga's caliber has come under his roof. Late that night, the girls wonder why Frio treats Nagi as if he were a real god. Nagi decides to stop hiding and tells the truth. He is the great spirit of water. He explains his mission to reach the lake and why he protects the children. Frio sheds tears of mercy for Nagi. Fail realizes the mysterious presence of Nagi finally makes sense. She admits that she followed him because she knew he was not just some random traveler. They shake hands and promise that the conquest will be successful, so that Nagi reaches his goal. The next morning, the children and Philly wave them goodbye, praying for their safety. Side by side with trusted comrades, Nagi sets out to meet the dragon. Everyone is sweating to the last drop because the extermination of the Adantiator has finally begun. The magical unit moves into position to intercept aggro and hold the front line, while the rest of the team sets up a defensive perimeter. Our guy Nagi is not just standing idle, he is preparing the battlefield with high-level terraforming. He has zero delay. He controls water and earth to create a huge zone of destruction. He drops a massive swamp trap, a pure ecological nightmare for any boss. The local soil is naturally clayey, a perfect trap. Once someone steps on it, the soil grabs and immediately swallows them. When the magical circles are already charged and the defensive line is set, the feeling fills with heavy tension before the start. The squad receives an order to rest. The scout reported that the real raid will begin at dawn. While Nagi is just resting, the twins Neo and Leo approach him, completely stunned by his magic. They have a serious request, and they want to borrow some of his time as soon as this mission is completed. They drop a mysterious phrase, "There is someone we want you to meet." Nagi definitely inquires who could be behind this mysterious invitation. These two are so desperate that they literally fall to their knees and beg him to agree to the meeting. Nagi scans the room for any red flags, but suddenly realizes that everything is 100 real. He agrees to meet their contact, but now he needs to focus on the main event tomorrow. Morgan Homes in the ground rumbles so much that the whole map shakes, tilting it completely. A giant foot the size of a mountain stomps heavily on the ground, signaling that the Adantiator has already arrived. This huge fool rushes straight at the city like a real assault bullet. She breaks stone walls as if they were wet paper, demonstrating a terrible level of pure wild strength. The boss heads straight into the trap on Naga's swampy land. As soon as it enters, the team launches an ambush. The giant turtle is stuck in the mud and looks as if it has finally been caught in the CC chain. Some of the trash mobs in the party already think victory is in the bag, but the veteran rangers know. The fight is just beginning. The beast starts breaking through the mud, forcing the mages to deploy explosive mines. A powerful explosion shakes the entire territory, debris scatters in all directions. Even Nagi must protect himself from shockwaves, while the battlefield turns into a continuous zone of total war. When the smoke clears, the monster is still standing there as if the explosive damage didn't affect it. The team starts to panic, shouting, "What? Even that doesn't work." The Dantator roars so loudly that it causes real physical damage. Protective barriers shatter. Nagi realizes the front line is about to be wiped out, so he instantly summons a huge water vortex. "I put a barrier instead of a wall," he shouts and steps forward, taking on the defensive phase alone. Inspired by the main hero's complete calm, the physical attackers rush forward to land a few hits. They swing giant blades and axes, trying to find a vulnerable spot in this thick armor. They go all in with heavy strikes, but the boss's health bar barely moves. Nagi watches as the situation rapidly spirals out of control. The monster's roar is so cracked that it literally knocks out the lower floor of adventurers. Frio, an elven mage, understands that he is losing the deal and tries to buy time by summoning a colossal golem. Timeth's stone tank charges at the boss and holds the line with strength. It lands a heavy blow, but the Adontator is too sturdy. The golem suffers a complete defeat in a single appropriate counterattack. Frio, and the others are left completely unprotected, open to strikes. The monster charges up for a finishing blow-in that could clear the entire vestibule. And Nagi steps in confidently and calmly, looks at Frio and says, "I'll handle it from here." He unleashes a huge stream of mana, and a gigantic water dragon begins to materialize. The water spirit hovers over the battlefield, radiating a god-level aura. Nagi breaks the spell and the dragon rushes forward without any delay. It's a direct hit, a massive torrent of water that completely crushes the Adontator's defense. The monster absorbs the swirling vortex of pure elemental power. When the rain starts to drizzle, the dust settles and it becomes clear. The beast has been completely neutralized. Wounded hunters begin to wake up, shocked that their wounds are actually healed by a mystical rain. No one can comprehend how the top boss just took off and disappeared. They all dart their eyes around, searching for an answer, completely unaware of the power you just unleashed. Our guy decides to hide his true identity and, raising the spirit stone, claims he was just lucky. He tells them, "Perhaps the great water spirit took pity and helped me," and the group fully believes it. They head back to the guild to celebrate the victory with a giant feast. Gant is the only one missing because he is currently in Frio's attic, suffering from a hangover. Quest completed. Nagi recalls his promise to the twins. He is led to the outskirts of the city and whispered to that their lord watches his every step. They reach a lonely cabin deep in the forest, surprisingly modest for someone so important. And as Neo and Lua approach the door, it becomes clear. This is not an ordinary passage but magical gates. They activate a high-level teleportation circle, and the entire room bursts into light. Nagi takes steps and moves further and suddenly finds himself in a huge hall, where a mysterious figure is already waiting for him. A gray-haired old man with a legendary beard meets him and calls out, "Great Spirit of Water." And then he drops a cherry bomb with the ultimate lore, using Naga's real name from his past life. Sayedzima Nagi, isn't it? The tension in the room reaches its limit as the old man unleashes a huge lore bomb and shows that he knows. Our guy was originally named Sayedzima Nagi. Before Nagi can even recover from how exactly that sage knows his secret, the old man begins to weave shining kanji in the air to reveal his own identity. It turns out he is not some random NPC, he is a compatriot from Japan named Agatsuma Yuuki. This revelation is so pompous and brilliant, as if he is ostentatiously boasting about his premium gacha effects just to enter. He stands there like a legendary top unit and finally gives a name to the face. Fail completely loses composure, screams in Japanese as if she just saw a glitch in the Matrix. The twins Luo and Neo are simply sent to play while the adults trade talks. But the sage does not try to be a bore. He snapped his fingers and out of nowhere appeared a whole tall tea set, but Nagi didn't even have time to react. The physical engine just gave up. It turns out this legendary sage is actually quite playful, you just have to pass by this scary aura. While they were brewing tea, the sage told a heavy tale about the timeline. Supposedly, he has already been in this world for about 300 years as the Sage of Providence. Returning to Japan, he was an ordinary businessman who was suddenly thrown into another world without warning. Here is where mathematics starts to painfully hit the brain. Nagi left Earth in 2033, but the sage took off in 2024. Despite only 9 years separating them on Earth, the sage has been turning a stone here for centuries, polishing his path in this world. This is a colossal distortion of time. 9 years in our world equals 300 in this one. This is a complete lag spike in the spacetime continuum. The sage says Nagi is actually the 4th reincarnator who jumped onto this server, and apparently he is still the most broken. But he explains, people from Japan appear every few decades to act as agents of change. Essentially, it is like a way to forcibly push a new update to the world to keep everything interesting. He has used foresight for years to track Naga's arrival. Remember that creepy raven that was watching our guy? It was actually the sage trying to make contact. He apologizes because the spiritual connection was roughly like trying to stream on a single Wi-Fi bar. Nagi understood. The bird was not a threat, it was just lagging too much, like a messenger app. After all this fuss, hearing the word smartphone again and Nagi hits right in the heart. We quickly analyze the other players. The first is the legendary hero Takeshi Matoba, who founded an entire kingdom before his death. He was the true MVP of his era, the founder of Takasol Kingdom. And another man is now just enjoying himself on a tropical island, living fully while everyone else pulls hard work. This is a striking difference between someone who builds a nation and a guy who just needs constant rest. But everything becomes real when the sage asks Nagi for a grand favor concerning the twins. It turns out Neo and Lua are not just some random mages. They are the last princes of the fallen magical kingdom Lunatia. The place lived and thrived until 18 years ago when it was wiped off the face of the earth. The sage has been secretly raising them since an old friend brought them to him as infants. These children are almost a top high-skill sealing team. By themselves, they cannot use magic, but if they combine their powers, they are capable of casting large-scale spells, ones that usually require a whole raid team. The sage wants Nagi to take them with him on the journey because their social skills have completely withered due to isolation. He has seen the future and knows Nagi is the key for them to form connections with other people. He even bows to our guy. That's how deeply and genuinely he cares about how his student is growing. When you see this legendary sage getting emotional, it becomes clear he is not just a cold-blooded genius. And Nagi sees how much love the sage has for these two and cannot refuse. At that very moment, he makes a vow. Given this incredible power, he intends to use it to save anyone within the reach of his hands. This is a pure moment of the main hero's triumph. Even the sage looks truly grateful. Before they set off, the sage gives some pro tips and hints that Nagi should teach other children magic as well. Now the hardest part begins, saying goodbye. The twins officially join the party and accept Nagi as their new master. The sage reminds them they can always teleport back for a visit, so this is not a farewell forever. The children finally bloom with a smile. They understand that their new adventure is really beginning. Then the sage shifts his gaze to Fail and asks if she will really follow Nagi. He sees she has her own hidden reasons to stay here. Nagi doesn't feel any anger in her, so he doesn't care. Let her go along with her. Fail twitches nervously, muttering that she is only going to watch. Nagi will no longer be able to do his thing. This is classic Sunder behavior, but the whole group just laughs and brushes it off. The sage watches them leave and prays that happiness will follow our guy on his path. The new party is officially formed. Luo, Neo, and Fail have all joined the squad. Fail is already diving into this, with the younger ones acting as if she is their older sister. Even the twins are starting to open up little by little, although they still need to get used to people who keep pointing out they have the same face and hair. Nagi thanks Frio for all the help, and in return gives her a water spirit as a familiar. When everything is settled, they gather the cart and set off towards the next city. But the mood changes instantly. The frame cuts to a dark landscape where people have managed to catch a black dragon and fasten glowing chains to it. It's a complete nightmare, and it is not at all pleased to have been trapped in a cage. It utters a primal curse, swearing to destroy every person who comes into its line of sight. If this awaits Nagi in the next zone, our guy better be ready for a real boss fight. The team finally approaches Mariel, a lively city right on the border. It has been a long month of travels, so Nagi decides to set up camp here for 10 days so everyone can recover their endurance bars. While the rest of the squad catches some sleep, Naga's internal radar starts ringing, and a heavy premonition of trouble spreads through his chest. He looks out the window and notices a giant vortex of dark energy wildly spinning in the night sky. The video footage is hopelessly frozen, and Nagi feels a soul-crushing wave of pain and hatred rising from the source. He is curious but does not intend to leave his companions unprotected while he goes on a solo quest. He makes a total pro-gamer move, summoning a high-level water spirit to hold the positions. This magical little force is Suiko, and she immediately greets Nagi as her father before taking her place. Once the base is securely established, Nagi slips out into the night, keeping that dark presence in sight all the way to the basement of the nearby mansion. He understands the target is hidden deep underground behind several layers of magical security. Nagi has no time for a stealth setup, so he simply breaks the barrier like it was glass. He falls into the deepest part of the pit and comes face to face with a real nightmare. A massive, terrible creature bound in radiant chains, and it radiates an aura of pure power. It is a dark dragon, and even in a weakened state, the pressure it exerts is simply insane. The beast introduces itself as Diazotis, and Nagi calmly reveals his identity. He is a great water spirit. This burly beast is already on the edge, admits that it no longer has the strength to even move its wings. He explains that he once lived in the abyss of demons until humans pulled a dirty trick. While he was hunting, they stole his egg and used it as bait to lure him into a trap. Now he is bound by dragon chains and cursed with spells that literally eat away at his soul. The dragon is completely broken, begging Nagi with his last breath to save my child from the hands of those arrogant humans. Nagi is not going to let a legendary creature go so easily like a trash mob, so he offers to heal wounds that cannot be healed. Diazot believes that it is impossible, but Naga's magic is assembled differently. He instantly fully restores the dragon's health. The dragon looks at him as if it has just seen the god Gacha descend. Nagi does not stop. He grabs the legendary shackles and tears them from the ground, having no legs at all. Diaz Otis sweats from fear. Because of the pure power of this spirit, he has just devalued the cursed seal. To escape, Nagi does not look for stairs. He simply flies through the roof of the mansion and breaks a huge hole in it. When the dragon flies into the sky, Nagi has to remind the heated Naga not to level the city to the ground, because his friends are still sleeping there. They fly to the palace in the next city, where the egg is held captive. Nagi knows, if the dragon rushes into attack, it will just draw attention to itself and he will be captured again, so he goes in alone in his spirit form. He turns into a tiny drop of water and slips past high-level guards patrolling the corridors. He manages to slip into the treasury, but he encounters a major plot twist. Not one but two eggs are hidden inside. Nagi realizes that he cannot phase the eggs through walls as he does with his own body, so he decides to protect both of them. He arranges a colossal diversion maneuver, floods the entire treasury, and flies out of the building on literally a tidal wave. He arranges a meeting with the dragon and offers the loot, but Diaz Oda notices something strange. One of the eggs belongs to a black sacred creature, named Narsha, being said to bring insane fortunes and fame. Suddenly, the egg bursts into light and begins to absorb Naga's mana. When they return to the city, the dragon asks how he can possibly repay such a huge debt. Nagi just smiles crookedly, already spinning a plan for his new dragon ally. Nagi and the cat girl notice the town is too noisy for peace. Our guy feels the mood is off and decides to flee to the lake much earlier than planned. Philadelphia trembles with tension over logistics, reminding that crossing the border without permission is practically a death sentence for their plans. Nagi is not nervous and immediately starts assigning tasks, ordering the squad to disperse and secure at least a month's supply of food. He pushes Luo and Neo hard to extract enough high-quality materials and build 3 huge houses for the entire team. While Philly takes others to prepare in new clothes, Nagi decides to drag Agro into the hardest task, finding professional builders. He heads straight to the guild looking for a master carpenter who isn't afraid to relocate a bit. When he walks the streets, his high-level perception begins to tingle. He feels a huge wave of infected energy and anger seeping from the nearby buildings. The dark aura is so thick that he can almost see it, and it smells of pure corruption. He begins to catch psychic echoes of half-people who were illegally turned into slaves. The word slaves hits him like a debuff, and his face immediately hardens, grows colder. He understands, just beneath his feet, people are trapped, forced to suffer in some secret torture chamber. He is overwhelmed by a psychic flare, frightened children screaming for help. For our guy, this is the last line that must not be crossed. Without any hesitation, Nagi uses his spirit powers and slips through the cobblestones. He is finally pulled into a dark, wet sewer as if it were a high-level prison map. The stagnant air confirms, for everyone inside, this place is a complete nightmare. Most people in cages look like total trash mobs who are actually supposed to be there. But then he notices an elf and a gnome whose energy is absolutely pure, and this proves they were framed. Elf prisoner notices Naga spirit, and he forms a gasp. The great spirit exhales deep moans. He begs for salvation, and the voice breaks from pure despair. When the rumor that the great spirit has appeared spreads, the rest of the dungeon explodes into chaos. Duckfool in the neighboring cell orders him to be silent, trampling innocent captives like dirt. Nagi does not play this, immediately sprays him with a focused burst of water to shut him up. He manifests his physical form and begins breaking locks, ordering everyone to be silent. Someone is coming. The gnome is stunned but still admits, even if they free him, they have nowhere to go. Nagi smiles indulgently and asks the main question, does that mean you would leave if you had somewhere to go? The gnome understands that Nagi is serious and confesses, he will do everything to break out of this pit. He explains that they have lost everything and have no hope of surviving outside. Our homeland was taken from us, he sobs, showing hands clearly made for forging. Natty tells them her plan regarding the lake and offers a place in the new settlement. He throws out a phrase that any protagonist would fall in love with himself for. If you don't have a homeland, we will make one for you. Of course, he adds a little GG trick, confessing that he actually only wants them to build those huge houses for him. The prisoners choke with gratitude, and even the fluffiest half-humans beg to take part in the celebration. Suddenly, the real criminal starts shouting, demanding carry, promising that they also know how to build something. They look simply pathetic, begging for Nagi to take them away from deserved punishment. The gnome warns Nagi, these guys are heavy criminal slaves and they must be avoided at all costs. Nagi scans the room and notices one guy at the back. He really has a pure heart. He passes through the bars and approaches the man to ask why someone like him ended up in such a place. The poor guy reveals he was framed for a crime by his best friend, took both the money and the girl. Meggy decides that he has suffered enough already and says, "You don't belong here." He grabs the innocent guy and prepares to strike while the other criminals continue howling. Nagi unleashes a giant tidal wave. With one clean move, he sweeps his new team out of the dungeon. Trash mobs hit the bars and drum on them, not understanding why they still can't catch even a second of rest. Nagi looks back without any pity and tells them, "You brought this on yourselves." He leaves him behind and gives a cold reminder. For their real crimes, everything must be paid honestly. Finally, the group gets outside and breathes the fresh city air again. The gnome has already sped up and promised to build Nagi as many houses as he wants in their new homeland. Half-human rabbits and half-human cats are also ready to work to exhaustion, promising to work with all their might to repay his kindness. Nagi realizes that he has effectively adopted an entire village of people and left them nowhere else to go. He assures them that everything will be fine and promises to introduce them to his other companions. When the main group sees the refugees, Philly and the girls are moved to tears by their tragic stories. Nagi shifts his gaze to the poisonous fumes spreading through the city and understands. Time is running out. Philadelphia notes that local merchants are already packing up shops before logistics completely fail. Nagi decides that they will spend one last day in the city stocking up on all daily necessities. On their last morning, the sun rises, and the city is like an empty vestibule for ghosts. The flow of pedestrians has dropped to zero, and Nagi notices. Even his gold no longer pulls as before. Suddenly, a loud voice cuts through the silence of the street and announces that the store is almost closing. Nagi strolls through the local shop, and the saleswoman Almina greets him with open arms. The place is packed with everything, from basic loot to high-class magical artifacts. Suddenly, the crystal ball on the shelf lights up, as if trying to reach its maximum. Almina explains that this rare item was created to react to the presence of spirits. It seems that the brighter the light, the closer and stronger the spirit really is. The orb goes into full nuclear acceleration. A dazzling flash spreads, almost completely bleaching the entire store. Almina cannot believe her eyes because this thing actually turns into a small sun. Realizing that hiding further is impossible, our guy finally drops the bomb. "Ah, wait, I am after all a great spirit, you know, very powerful." The revelation proves too heavy for Almina's brain. She suddenly falls face first onto the floor. In a moment, she finally opens her eyes and looks as if she has just swallowed the truth, and also gone deaf from it. As soon as she gathers her thoughts, she trembles with curiosity. Why is some great spirit descending into human trade? Nagi explains the plan to move to the lake, and Almina understands. They will need a serious supply line for daily needs. She does not miss a single word and as if asks, "If so, then why not leave the logistics to me?" Finally, she admits, today she was going to close the shop and move altogether. She almost begs to join and says, "Please allow me, Almina, to join you, Lord Nagi." To sweeten the deal, she offers to take absolutely every item from her inventory as a bonus. As soon as the merchant class is unlocked, Almina officially joins the team the very next day. The team finally leaves Mariel behind and rushes deep into the forest to reach their new base. While others worry about going too far from the border, Nagi says he is actually meeting someone special. Suddenly, a giant shadow covers the sky, and a chill runs through everyone's body. A huge black dragon descends from above, and the aura of pure power emanating from it causes the company to lose their composure. The incredible scale of this creature is bone-chilling, and everyone else screams in pure panic upon seeing the legendary black dragon. Everyone recognizes in it the monster that has recently been spreading fear in the region. But Nagi walks forward calmly, explaining that Diathotis is a victim who tried to retrieve a child kidnapped by humans. The dragon bows its head and addresses them directly. "I have come today to repay Nagi for saving my life and my child." Nagi looks into the colossal eye of the dragon and realizes they have the best mount for instant travel. Since the rest of the group has fainted from pure shock, the dragon creates a water bubble to safely carry them all. They rise into the sky, flying through the clouds as if they have zero delay. Diathotes approaches Nagi and checks if the flight is not too bumpy. Only little Yona has not fainted and watching notices. The dragon truly has very gentle eyes. Nagi tells her about the dark elf family who will be waiting for them by the lake, and hopes she will befriend the boy named Helio. Yona blushes. It is clear that she is incredibly excited because she finally has a place she can call home. As soon as they clear the path line, the dragon notices their target. Yona's eyes light up as soon as she sees the water. She exclaims, "Amazing, this is incredible, this is wonderful." The dragon quietly descends and lands right on the shore of Lord Naga's lake. Diathotis officially repays his debt, telling Nagi, "I have kept my promise." Niji thanks her for the help, and she swiftly flies up into the sunset. After the stunned trash mobs come back to life, the whole team gathers near the wagons. Suddenly, dark elves jump out of the bushes. Etna and Helio shocked. Their master has returned. They patiently waited for his return, but were a bit confused by the crowd he brought with him. Seeing the people, the elves immediately take a defensive stance. Nagi steps forward to vouch for them, saying that they are all good people and that they will do you no harm. The party members begin to introduce themselves. Gand and Shauna speak first. Almina and Felix also stand up, telling how Nagi rescued them from a dark fate. Nagi asked the elves if everyone could live together by the lake. Etna smiles and nods, agreeing, working together is the best way forward. He calls everyone back to himself for tea and a proper, genuine reception. Nagi thanks Etna for the warm welcome. It feels as if the gacha gods have finally blessed him and given him a decent team. Yona immediately rushes over to Helio to introduce herself. She even brings along her younger brother Rudo so that he can join the fun. The children have already gathered, and the vibe is so warm it's almost scary. Even those who look rougher among the members of this group find common ground with the locals. Nagi notices monsters circling overhead and realizes such a large pack can draw attention from distant threats. He covers the water with his hand and directs his power. He sets up a giant protective barrier to block any threats trying to cause harm. When the defense system is activated, the elves announce a grand banquet ceremony to celebrate the master's return. When the moon rises, the celebration bursts into full swing. Everyone drinks and laughs together, dwarves, elves, and humans. Our guy looks from the side, satisfied with the community he has built. Yona approaches to check on him and asks if he has already eaten. He tells her how happy he is that everyone has become such good friends. The children are already planning to go fishing tomorrow, but Nagi warns them, do not go beyond the barrier, stay inside. Yona looks at him with pure admiration and thanks him for working so hard for everyone. She only barely smiled and nodded, and he felt her gratitude so sharply that it pierced through the contract mark. She throws him one last magical smile, then quickly runs off to play with Helio. When left alone, fatigue finally hit him like a truck and he grumbled, maybe I overdid it a bit. He decides to go into the water to restore mana. He thinks he can just quickly nap to recover. He slowly casts his gaze into the abyss and thinks he will sleep just a little. Suddenly, through the water, the cry of Yona's voice reaches him. He slowly opens his eyelids and wonders if it is already morning outside. He jumps out of the water, greets Yona, and tells her how much she liked the banquet. But Yona looks completely different. She reaches out to him, tears in her eyes. Nagi glances embarrassedly and realizes she suddenly grew much taller than he remembered. It is then that she drops a bombshell that makes you shudder. 3 years have passed. Nagi is still reeling from the news. He has been gone for 3 whole years. It turned out that the time pass hit hard while our guy was catching his magical ZS. Yona, almost in tears, explains how every day she worried and feared that something terrible had happened somewhere. He thinks that Nagi simply exhausted herself to the limit for their sake. So Nagi begins to piece everything together and realizes fighting huge monsters and holding that fleshy barrier lagoon means his mana pool has already been depleted to 0. But the wait is finally over, and Yona greets him as warmly as never before, warming his heart. Our guy immediately notices Yona is no longer just a child, he has grown up, and his characteristics have noticeably leveled out. Yona tells him to keep his eyes closed because a huge surprise awaits him. When Nagi finally looks up, he simply freezes. In front of him is a mansion, making his old house look like a shack of some trashy crowd. This is a complete demonstration of power from the peasants who wanted to make sure their savior would have a place to call home. Nagi hesitates a little about the luxury, but still enters his new base. The dwarves really went all out with the interior design. But then Nagi notices something much more important, an egg standing on a pedestal. He feels extremely bad for leaving this little one alone for 3 years. As soon as he touches it, he realizes the gacha gods were smiling. He can really feel a heartbeat inside. Yona says that the whole village took turns every day to approach and talk to the egg. When Nagi asks about monster attacks, Yona casually mentions that Philly and Suiko took on the patrols. Suddenly, a familiar face emerges from the ether. Suiko greets him, good morning, Dad, and she looks more magnificent than ever. It turns out Suiko stayed behind to protect the people near the lake because Yona personally asked her. This is a colossal addition to the lore. Summoning and subjugating a high-ranking spirit like Suiko means that Yona's spirit magic has now reached its peak here. Nagi glows with pride seeing how his protege has matured inside. But their quiet moment is cut short by a huge commotion rolling in from outside. The entire hall rushes to meet him, and there is complete chaos. Nagi tries to apologize for the sudden disappearance, but the elf trickster orders him to stop worrying about trifles. They have already prepared a huge banquet feast to celebrate his awakening. It turns out they all hid very close by just to surprise him. Nagi is completely on board and tells Yona to invite all the other kids to the party too. The celebration is at full throttle. The whole town comes out to see their lord. Etno explains that the dark elves have officially settled and are helping the fields yield a bountiful harvest. Nagi says that in this he is a complete G and says, if everyone who lives here decides together, I have no reason to object. This kindness literally brings the dark elves to tears. They start serving fresh salads from the garden to the table, which look simply incredible. They even advise Nagi to drop by Smithy to see the new equipment they are currently crafting. Garud, a burly dwarf, finally appears to greet Nagi. Nagi thanks him for the home, but Garud says it was pure pleasure for him himself. He admits that building houses for the community brought him a new sense of satisfaction. The area has changed, from a camp grew a real town worthy of respect. The next day, Nagi takes a walk to see the progress for himself. The town looks flourishing and peaceful as Yona guides him through the streets. They run into Almina. She shakes in front of everyone, showing her new shop. Now they maintain a strong economy, exchanging materials from high-ranking monsters for goods from nearby villages. The quality of life in almost all has reached its maximum. Finally, they ran to the blacksmith to look at the fresh masterpiece of Garud. The blacksmith's workshop looks professional and fully equipped. Garuda shows the blade he worked on, and Nagi is instantly impressed. It is an elegantly decorated dagger that radiates quality. Garavri reveals that a vein of mithril was found underground and asks Nagi to bless it. Since it was mined in Naga's domain, he can actually turn it into a legendary item. Nagi directs his water magic, and the blade flashes with otherworldly light. The gnomes are simply amazed by the exhibition. The blessing worked perfectly. The blade turned into a true spirit sword. This is not just some rare drop now, it is one of the 10 most powerful weapons in the entire world. Nagi, go ahead, let Yona hold it, and that spiritual energy swirling around the child, it's just crazy. The aura is so heavy that it literally ripples through the air in waves. Yona freezes at his beauty, but the unmasked power is so wild that he even feels a bit dizzy. Suddenly someone crashes into the party with a scream of panic. It's Luna, and she looks completely on edge, pure stress. Out just as she drops a bomb that turns everything upside down. The dragon messenger is standing right behind the barrier. Nagi is left to guess what exact threat or message he will receive now. Nagi finds himself face to face with a courier from the dragonborn village. He was looking for him. The man introduces himself as Danif and confirms Naga's identity, the Great Spirit, before delivering heavy news. He carries a colossal burden, showing that he came to fulfill the last request of the Dark Dragon, Lord Diazadis. Our guy is completely exhausted just by the mention of the last will. He feels that something tragic happened somewhere while he was away. They decide to move the conversation to a private place to discuss the grim details of the dragon's death. It turns out that after Nagi saved Diazadis, the dragon lived a peaceful life in the abyss of eternal darkness near the dragonborn village. He peacefully coexisted with the peasants and did not cause anyone any problems. Then the self-proclaimed envoy from the kingdom of Luginas rolled up, called Diazodas an evil dragon, and demanded that the peasants hand him over. The dragon tribe does not betray its own, so they flatly refuse to obey the order to betray their friend. This forced the kingdom to return with a whole army to crush the village. The Dragonwing Knights held their ground and repelled the attack until the kingdom's heroes burst into the battle. The balance completely shifted, and the village was utterly destroyed. When his friends were crushed, Diazoda entered the fight and, unleashing his true power, pushed the invaders back. Even when the people retreated, the dragon knew they would return anyway with a bunch of trash mobs to sow suffering. He decided the only way to protect the village was to go on a suicide mission and destroy the human forces once and for all. He left Danif one last request: if he did not return, take his child to Nagi for protection. With a heavy heart, he entrusted the future of his son Pelagius to the Great Spirit. Returning to reality, the weight of the brutal battle did not let go for a long time while Dina finishes her story. Suddenly, something begins to stir in the basket that Danif brought with him. Two cute little dragon jumps out of thin air. Prince Pelagius. The little one immediately clings to Nagi. Without any hesitation, he jumps right onto his lap. This is a direct caught you a sweet victory. He cuddles and sniffs Naga's hand. Nagi asks about the father's remains and learns that the villagers gave him a proper burial. Looking at this innocent little dragon, Nagi feels everything melting in his chest and thanks the little dragons for their loyalty to his friend. He officially vows to take the child under his wing and protect him. Deniv rushes home and begs Nagi to keep the prince safe at all costs. A week passes and Nagi fully immerses himself in fatherhood, solemnly promising to raise Pelagius into a legendary dragon. The little one is pure energy, chirping non-stop and eager to fight. Nagi takes him deep into the forest every day for live combat training to help him level up. But they are not alone. Lately, some random slime has been trailing behind them. This little slime creature works like a cleaning crew. It eats everything that Valacius leaves behind after hunting. It is amazingly intelligent. It even tries to communicate with Nagi using gestures. The training is interrupted as soon as they notice a huge shadow prowling in the bushes. It is a hippogriff, and this creature looks like it has a serious character problem. A beast bursts out of the trees, wildly screeches a battle cry and lunges at our guy. Pelagius does not hesitate. In flight, he crashes into the monster with a brutal ramming strike to the head. And the hippogriff has a stinky debuff attack. It releases a piercing scream. The sound wave hits Balaji's heart. He reels and struggles to stay in the air. Nagi understands. The scream has a paralyzing effect, pure pain for the young dragon. He trusts the raw statistics of Balajius, hoping they will pull this duel through. The slug even tries to cheer them on from the side as the tension rises. The hippogriff takes advantage of the momentary daze, drives Balajius into the ground, and he sinks into massive bone splinters from the impact. The little dragon is pinned to the ground. He lies motionless, as if about to be removed. Just as Nagi is already pulling aggro and is about to lay the bird down, something changes in the air. Pelagius's eyes flash with a terrifying ancient light. An extraordinarily dark space suddenly splits open and expands, engulfing the entire area with absolute shadow. Nagi feels incredible pressure, the true dreadful power of the dark dragon. The monster realizes it has targeted the wrong player and begins to panic wildly as the darkness squeezes it from all sides. The darkness is so thick, as if it repels the very light itself, a terrible aura that would break any ordinary creature. When the shadows finally dissipate, only a few feathers remain from the hippogriff. Pelagius breathes hoarsely on the ground. He completely cleared the lobby with a single strike. Nagi rushes to him to heal his tired little warrior after the frantic awakening. He is incredibly proud and gives the dragon a well-deserved pat on the head. While Pelagius returns to his meal, Nagi senses two familiar presences approaching. The twins Neo and Luo suddenly appear out of nowhere. They explain that they were busy helping their master with magical research near the lake. Even before Nagi manages to process their arrival, he is driven into a huge teleportation circle. He is effectively kidnapped without any warning. He finds himself in a room with an old man who apologizes for his students' rude behavior. The old man introduces the guest, named Mutwo Hiraki. The man smiles indulgently and drops a bombshell. He is also a reincarnator from Japan like Nagi. Hiroaki Mudu sits opposite our guy, and it turns out he is a reincarnator from Japan like Nagi. Nagi is sweating profusely. He definitely remembers that name sounding somewhere before. They agree with a handshake, and the guy tells Nagi to just call him Hayuramo. This dude is sharp. He immediately notices that Nagi is not an ordinary person, but a great spirit. Hiromu decides to make a loud revelation. He says that although he looks human, his true essence is a legendary sacred dragon. Suddenly, a small bear just jumps out of the darkness to greet them, and Hiromu instantly recognizes him as the child of the dark dragon Diazotis. Hiram begins to tell how reliable Diazotis was, but Nagi has to dampen the mood with heavy news. Nagi's fist clenches as he prepares to deliver a report that will hit painfully. Diazotis has died. Jiru is completely confused. He cannot believe that such a top power could fall and collapse. Nagi says that a messenger from Dragonkin arrived in the village directly to personally deliver the terrible news. Jiromo sits down, completely broken by the loss of his old friend. An old man intervenes in the conversation and explains. The kingdom of Lagnus is starting to move strangely. They plan to launch a full-scale war against the Dragon People's settlement soon. To draw attention to themselves and justify the invasion, the kingdom uses old incidents such as the attack on the treasury as a pretext. They pinned all the blame on the Dark Dragon just to have grounds to eliminate him. Nagi points out how foolish this logic is. It was the humans who stole the egg and were the first to use forbidden magic. The old man explains that the situation is much more complicated than a simple misunderstanding. Forbidden magic is not something a person can handle naturally. It is a reserve of power for the dungeon. This may mean that the entire kingdom is ruled through the insidious manipulation of demons. These demons are the most malicious griefers. They rebelled against the gods and with extremely evil forces of darkness take everything in a row. They hide in the shadows and secretly target other races to collect power themselves. Harama blazed with rage and declared that they must show people true horror when you make an enemy out of a dragon. Nagi is not going to sit idly by and watch the village be wiped off the map. Harama agrees, recalling the promise he made. He will lend his power if everything goes awry. Nagi is ready to help, but worries that splashes and shards will hit innocent people caught in the crossfire. The old man agrees. Corrupt officials are the target, but citizens must not be touched. He officially gives them the main task for this arc. Go to the village of Dragonkins and protect it from the army approaching from the kingdom of Ludginus. Nagi accepts the mission without hesitation, and the old man promises to investigate the demon's influence already in the capital. Hiramu looks at Nagi in his gaze both respect and guilt. He apologizes for letting anger get the better of him and dragging into this trouble a person who had nothing to do with it. He is truly grateful that in the duel about to begin, he has Naga's support. Alright, Nagi just smiles. He says he hasn't been unrelated since the moment he met Diazotas and took Barages in. He wants to protect the homeland of the little person and fulfill the will of the dragon who saved him. Hiramu barely smiled, realizing that Nagi really has very broad views, as their mutual acquaintance Yuki had said about them. He said, "Time to go," and the air begins to tremble with immense energy. Huge white wings unfold, catching the light as they prepare to take off. Hiramu reveals his true form, a majestic white dragon that looks exactly like a boss unit. Nagi jumped on his back for an instant journey without delay, while Bargius flew alongside. It seems like a legendary party rushing straight into the highest level zone. Before leaving forever, Nagi gathers the elves to explain why he must set out for the Dragonkin village. He wants this city not to be drawn into the conflict while he is away. Little Yona steps forward and begs Nagi to take her with him this time. She has honed her skills and says she can already fight, unleashing the spirit sword. Nadzi gently strokes her head, acknowledging she has become stronger both in body and spirit. But he did not take her to the combat zone instead. He asked her to become the very first defender of the city while he is gone. Yona meets his gaze with determination and accepts the mission, promising to protect everyone while Nagi is absent. Just after returning to the air, Nagi told Baragius that he wanted to keep Yona away from the fight for her own safety. Baragius is pure cuteness. He coos at Nagi while they fly through the clouds. Nagi admits that he argued about whether it was worth taking the little one with him at all. Because this is his father's resting place, he wanted to consider the children's feelings and make him promise not to fight anymore. Suddenly the dragon's gaze sharpens. He notices something on the horizon. Through the fog, the destination finally comes into view. Dragonkin's settlement, a gigantic, beautiful town built among floating mountains and waterfalls. Our guy finally reached the center of the storm to protect the innocent from the flames of war. Elder Rojas approaches to meet the squad in the village. He is interested in whether our guy Nagi is really the great spirit of water, along with the legendary sacred dragon Takamuto and the dark dragon Baragus. Nagi nods to him kindly, and little Baragus only lets out a cute chirp. Rip, Rojas clearly breathes a sigh of relief. He was still covered in sweat all the time, because of the war that was about to start. He explains, reconnaissance confirms that the enemy army will arrive in a few days. Even before the raid begins, Nagi wants to take the little one to the last resting place of Diazotis. Rojas agrees to lead them to the dragon mausoleum. It stands on a huge floating rock massif. When they reach the monument, Nagi stands motionless and in complete silence looks at the statue of the fallen dragon. Looking at the ancient inscription on the stone, you increasingly feel how the weight of this situation presses on your chest. I remove comments about how peaceful it is here, a rare atmosphere in a world where everything is so chaotic. The mood changes instantly as soon as Borgias realizes where they have ended up. The poor little dragon immediately breaks into sobs on the stone, and that is enough to break anyone's heart. Nagi falls to his knees and touches the cold stone, whispering, "I really wanted to meet you again alive." He solemnly vows to protect the village and keep the dragon's legacy safe. Suddenly, a barely noticeable ghostly presence appears, as if thanking them, and Nagi freezes completely in shock. He looks back at the empty statue and suddenly understands the cost of this upcoming defensive mission. Given that they are already here, Hiramu suggests visiting the Twilight Sanctuary, the place where the dragon once lived. They find a huge crater on the ground that looks as if a nuclear bomb literally went off. The group carefully makes their way along the edge of the chasm to find the entrance to the hidden cave. As they run into the darkness, Nagi feels something is definitely wrong. He freezes in place, sensing a mysterious aura reaching out from the darkness. A cold draft comes from the depths ahead in the tunnel. Despite all the red flags, Nagi decides to intercept attention and goes inside alone. Two shining empty eyes press from the abyss as if asking what he wants. The dark-haired boy comes outside as if he hasn't slept for a whole decade, and Nagi introduces himself as the spirit of water. This is Formus, the great spirit of darkness, and he is by no means pleased with guests in his domain. Neji explains that he was simply paying respects to an old acquaintance who recently died. Forma looks completely indifferent to sentiment and just stares at Nagi with an empty expression. He throws a mysterious phrase about how Nagi contacts people too often, so he doesn't really resemble a spirit. As soon as Nagi manages to ask for more lore, Formus promises to remember him and disappears into thin air. Hiramu is simply blown away. Nagi spoke with the spirit of darkness without any pretension. For the next couple of days, they enjoy a short rest with the Draconoids, and they turn out to be the most sincere, kindest NPCs imaginable. Look how peacefully they live, and he realizes he cannot allow any trash mobs to spoil this village. He sits alone, hardening his resolve to protect these people no matter what happens. But the silence does not last long. Hiramu receives news that the enemy army is finally approaching. Hiramu speaks seriously and asks Nagi if he is really ready to settle scores with other people. Our guy confesses he has fought before but has never really taken a human life. He knows he must steel himself, because this is the decisive battle for the survival of everything he cares about. Hiramu admits that his own human consciousness is fading very quickly, and honestly, it scares him. He tells Nagi that conversations with him on Yuki are the only thing that reminds him that he was once human too. They agree to quickly end this conflict just at the moment when a messenger bursts in. The army of the Lugansk kingdom has finally arrived, and they are not joking. The sky is clear, but the atmosphere is oppressive. It reeks of blood. From the cliff down, they see thousands upon thousands. A full 20,000 soldiers have set up camp in the fields. On the other side, the Drakonkins have only 200 elite knights and about 3,000 ordinary soldiers. Dragon knights are sturdy fighters. 1 equals 200 humans, but the enemy has hero-class warriors who take them down one by one with bare hands. Nagi narrows his eyes. He senses among the enemy ranks 5 distinct, irresistible presences. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble, and a giant magical circle flares in the sky. The enemy does not waste a second, launching an elite summoning ritual that looks like a nightmare. From the swirling vortex of energy, a gigantic creature begins to take shape. It is a huge armored golem, the size of which blocks the entire forest, and from it flows a terrible aura that causes ordinary soldiers to freeze in fear. Nagi admits that the enemy summoners are actually quite skilled. They manage to pull off such a trick. The Titan launches a colossal beam of energy directly at our guy's position. Nagi does not even flinch. He steps forward, and with one hand blocks the entire explosion. He orders Hiram to take the helm, and his buddy does not hesitate for a second, rushing forward with a partial transformation into a dragon. Hiram's strike is so powerful that with one blow he completely breaks the enemy's attack momentum. Nagi barely smiles, thinking he has gained the upper hand, but his spider sense suddenly begins to tremble. In a moment, a deadly blade flashes in the air, and Nagi curls up before the dragon can even shout its name. Between Dragon Village and the kingdom of Luginas, a war has just broken out, and everything falls into the abyss immediately when the assassin tries to take down our guy Nagi. But Nagi is not just some trash mob caught off guard. He actually used himself as bait to lure the assassin. He trapped him in the water before the latter could deliver a deadly blow. His allies are completely stunned. He is unharmed, but Nagi is already calculating 3 moves ahead. He understands this is not just a random big guy, but someone who possesses the skills of a hero. He hands the prisoner over to his guards to keep the buddy under surveillance. Once the base near home is securely established, he decides to head directly toward the enemy camp to find Hiramu. Meanwhile, Hiramu is clearing the lobby against the so-called heroes. He lands a heavy blow that clearly sends a signal to the opposition. One of the heroes, a burly bearded man, boils with rage and calls him a creature resembling a gecko. Hiramu only smirks crookedly and asks his opponents, "Is this really all it takes to corner a hero?" The third hero tries to pull off a sudden flank attack, thinking they have found a vulnerable spot. She screams that he has many breaches but is about to find out. Hiramu has 0 delay. He easily slips between their coordinated attacks like a pro gamer playing on a Smurf account. He catches a huge axe with bare hands. The strength is unmatched. The gap is too big. One lightning-fast kick and the woman knight flies away, while he keeps the bearded man at a distance. Watching from the side, Nagi realizes Jeramu has the power to crush all 3 heroes without even breaking a sweat. While Hiramu holds the front, Nagi feels something bad nearby, a presence hiding somewhere close. He follows the trail of destruction left by Hiramu's previous dragon attack. He finds the source near a solitary tent and senses a human presence hiding inside. Inside, we see a hooded sorceress who completely loses composure while trying to reach the treasures and search the chests. She is in panic. Nagi destroyed her summoned demon on the first try, and that was definitely not part of her plan. Nagi simply enters and without unnecessary words begins preparing water magic. He traps her in a shimmering water barrier and offers her to surrender without violence. But the summoner thinks he is bluffing and refuses to allow himself to be deceived. She pulls out a grimoire and summons a burly minotaur to crush Nagi. Our guy doesn't even flinch. He controls the water and slices right through the beast's path. He completely immobilizes the minotaur in a block of enchanted water, and the summoner breaks out in a cold sweat. Desperation, and she releases the next summon, a giant fish-like monster Bakwana. It's something like a nightmare from the depths. It rises above Nagi like a giant. It creates a giant whirlpool and tries to swallow Nagi whole. The summoner believes she has finally landed a kill shot. Nagi stands right before its giant gaping maw with not a hint of fear. Calmly reminds her, water is mine, and takes full control over the monster's very element. A colossal explosion of water bursts forth with one strike. He shatters the summon and knocks down the summoner's confidence. The explosion hurls the girl into the air and she realizes she has been completely outplayed. Nagi looks at her intently and says that choosing him as an opponent was a bad idea. She looks at him as if she sees a true god and cannot understand why her high-level magic does not work. In a desperate last attempt, she burns all her remaining mana to summon heavy artillery Hydra and Hekaton chair. Massive magical circles flare in the air as she calls ancient horrors. These multi-headed monsters turn out to be a terrible aura that would make any normal soldier faint. She even pulls out a beast behemoth, a huge elephant-like tank creature. She shouts for her monsters to kill that boy while they launch a joint attack. A large barrel thunders overhead Nagi and crashes down on him, about to crush everything around. The battle reaches its limit as three heroes realize they are completely outmatched by this absolute titan. The villain only smiles maliciously, looking at their pathetic struggle, and mocks the very idea of a hero as he prepares to end this raid. Fraser tries to squeeze out a desperate move, but in one harsh exchange she is decisively defeated. The way their commander was knocked down so brutally instantly breaks the spirit of the remaining knights. They swear that her death will not be in vain, squeezing out mana to the limit for one single last desperate combo. They unleash their ultimate skills, Chronostamicals, and Hazan Tenjiki, hoping to break through the crazy defense of the scoundrels. The explosion is gigantic, illuminating the entire battlefield with a force enough to erase an entire lobby. For a moment, the knights truly think they have already secured the W. But hope is immediately wiped off the face of the earth. A devastating counterbeam cuts through the smoke. The villain emerges from the dust with a few scratches and proclaims that it is all over, while the heroes lie on the ground, exhausted and broken. While Hiram watches from the side, deciding whether he should carry our guy Nagi. The main hero is currently dealing with a literal nightmare multi-armed monster beast that gives goosebumps. Nagi tries to keep his distance, dodging through a hail of heavy attacks from the crowd of trash. He tries to drown the beast by unleashing a huge barrage of water magic on it. It seems the combination is reliable, but the size of this monster is too meaty. Suddenly the beast opens its jaws endlessly, and Nagi realizes he has just stepped right into a trap himself. The monster not only absorbs the blow, it also soaks up water to fuel its own attack. Nagi realizes that sweat is pouring down him like hail while the beast prepares to strike back. The Hydra heads line up for a single attack and flood everything with Hydra's poison, releasing a deadly dose of venom everywhere. Nagi barely manages to cover himself, but the poison is already starting to corrode his defense. He is completely surrounded by elite mobs, and his usual set won't hold here. He knows against three bosses at once, there is no window for a standard attack. His usual fighting style simply doesn't fit the situation here. He pushes himself to the limit and dives deep into his own mental library, searching for the forbidden sheet code. There, right in the center of the forbidden archive, he finds a huge tome securely bound with heavy chains. He feels the colossal power flowing from the book, but it was sealed for a very dark reason. Even knowing it is forbidden, Nagi understands there is no other choice if he wants to survive. He reaches out, his fingers tremble as he prepares to break the seal. To break free from this situation, he is ready to pay any price as long as the gacha gods demand it. A deafening crack cuts the silence, chains break, and a blinding light engulfs his sight. He opens his eyes, and in them is no longer his gaze, but the cold, merciless gaze of a true monster hunter. The demon girl, who was hiding in the shadows and watching everything, was completely stunned by the sharp change in mana. Nagi begins to hum the forbidden art of the spirit, and the very atmosphere starts to move with a rhythm, filled with a pure intent to kill. Three monsters crash into the fight, but they have not yet realized that they lost the game even before entering. Naga's gaze sticks to the targets he sees through their defenses. He calmly stands in the very eye of the storm, while his mana begins to rewrite the very laws of physics. He whispers the name of the technique, Mist Annihilation Realm. In a moment, the huge monsters vanish from existence, turning into mere tiny particles. The demon girl still trembles, not understanding what just happened after witnessing such a terrifying power. The monsters do not even leave behind a single drop of loot, they simply disappear, like a glitch in the Matrix. Naga's body finally reaches the limit. He falls and curls up because his strength begins to rapidly deplete. He realizes that he has used too much power, and the backlash hits him like a truck. He remembers the wasted Annihilation Realm, a technique that turns the target into mist and completely erases it. Even bleeding from his eye, Nagi manages to hold the remaining mist with a water barrier so it doesn't kill him completely. He shifts his gaze to the demon girl. Finally, she has recovered. Hermo explains that another prisoner committed suicide before they could extract any information from him. Nagi wakes up and sees Hiram is standing over their new prize. It was the hero who summoned the flame giant, but she is definitely not human. Nagi shows his horns and a palpable, huge magical presence, the same one that proves she is a demon. Jiro Mu is certain this is the demon they were warned about. Hiramu is not joking and asks, should we kill her here? The girl begins choking from the magical seal, desperately trying to say at least something. Finally, she manages to scream, I am a demon, I will tell everything I know, please, I beg you. But before she can spill all the gossip, a coughing fit overtakes her and she starts coughing up blood because the silence curse activates, instantly suppressing her voice. Nagi realizes that she is being erased by her own and rushes forward to intervene. The girl is already on the verge of irreversible game over, while the poison manages to take its toll. Nagi manages to stabilize her with magic at the last moment, although Hiram thinks he is too soft. Nagi just smiles and tells his brother that lies don't work on him, and he knew she was sincere. He explains if it turns out she is a threat, he will personally take care of her. They understand demons use silent spells to keep their secrets safe from humans. Returning to the village, Nagi finally gets the rest he deserves. He is greeted by the loyal dog Agis, who is overjoyed that his master returned safe. Nagi finally pats the little boy on the head, and he exhales after exhausting polishing. The war against the kingdom of Lugina ended in a complete victory in just 5 hours. Nagi cannot help but think about how ruthlessly and terribly demons deal with their own people. He knows the war with the demons is far from over. And now he will simply enjoy the silence for which he fought so hard. Several weeks have passed since the war against Lugina's ended. Our guy Nagi is now in recovery mode, resting in the village while the leaders await a response from the sage. Meanwhile, the demon woman they captured since waking up behaves like a real cinnamon roll. It is strange and somewhat jarring to see a former threat become so cute while she plays with the caretaker. It turns out she has lost all memory of everything that happened after 8 years. The sage thinks this mental regression is a disgusting side effect of the silent spell that failed. Even after the memory wipe, she remains a figure of interest to them, so they plan a meeting to decide what will happen next to the kingdom. Nagi says he is already fine, although his mana still flows from his hands like a running tap. When he finally meets the girl Agatsuma, Mashras is just all sweaty standing in the same room with him. She clings to her caretaker, Sinu, the one who seems to be the only one capable of keeping her calm. The sage drops a giant Lorov bomb launcher, revealing that Mashras is not a purebred demon at all. She is a half-blood forced to learn high-level summoning magic, and this places an inhuman burden on her soul. Naga's treatment actually saved her life, but her mind regressed to a childlike state to survive the trauma when her true essence was erased. She is not pretending, she is literally terrified because she feels the oppressive presence of Neji and perceives it as a demon's aura. It becomes creepy when you realize demons actually used her as a disposable battery for their monsters. Agatsuma explains that after the war in Lugina's, everything looked incredibly suspicious. Only he went to check guards immediately tried to take him down. He understood the entire army was brainwashed by villainous demons. Instead of wasting time, the sage wildly struck his staff on the ground and launched a dispel of brainwashing cleansing across the entire kingdom. The scale of his mana is terrifying to the point of trembling with a single pulse of light. He cleanses the whole city. By the time he cleared the lobby, the demon's plan was already fully completed. The situation looks bleak. A whole bunch of spirit magic users and slaves have disappeared, they were simply taken away. Agasuma is certain. The demons have planned something that will tear the world apart. All these kidnapped mages are not disappearing by chance. Even the Dragon King is about to enter the battle, because during the chaos, one of his relatives was blown apart. Nagi was entrusted to appeal to the great spirits to prepare for the coming storm. The problem is that most of the great spirits are neutral, and they don't care about human dramas. Nagi knows if they want to survive, he cannot relax. Before leaving, Nagi hands over a magical tome that they snatched from a demon woman. Watching the forbidden spells inside, the sages froze in shock. The level of monsters that Mashers ended up with forced them to summon a spell. He decides the best move is to let her stay in the temple to cleanse all that still holds the evil power's magical haze. He reaches out his hand to calm her. "You have endured so much pain before this, but now you can finally rest," he says quietly. This is a rare emotional moment. Mashers finally allows tears to break through. The sage jokes that in his time, he dealt with much more problematic students. When everything was settled, Nagi returns to his home base near the lake. After a long journey through the clouds, finally he reaches the outskirts of the village. He is truly shocked that the town has grown so much in size while he was away. Yona and Ruto notice him immediately and rush forward to meet again. He was greeted in such a way that this welcome back would melt anyone's heart. It is obvious that the village has continued to undergo updates since he left. The population has not only grown, new races have joined the squad to become part of the team. And Nagi notices a huge scaly tail sliding through the grass. Next to Lamia, a group from the Lamia tribe emerges and steps forward. They want to offer their services to the Lord of the Lake. Like the Dark Elves, they are an oppressed people seeking protection. Nagi, the absolute trump card, greets them with open arms. The leader of Lamia clearly breathes a sigh of relief as soon as he finds a place where they won't be hunted. Nagi just wants everyone to live happily after all the trash they had to deal with. But wait, that's not all. A whole pack of burly dwarves has also relocated to the city. They were officially asked to become residents of the growing community. As a sign of goodwill, they present Nagi with a gift wrapped in cloth. It is a masterfully crafted sword, forged with insane precision and care. Rudo's eyes literally sparkle as he looks at the blade. Nagi let the child hold this. Then he decides to simply give it to him as motivation. He will keep it just in case until Rudo actually learns to wield the sword. The town is expanding, so Nagi understands he needs to expand the barrier magic. He orders the children to gather Philly and the rest of the main team for a meeting at his estate. When everyone has gathered in his huge living room, Nagi throws a heavy request at them. I want you to meet with the Elven King as my representatives, he says. They need the cooperation of the elves to deal with the demonic conspiracies regarding the spirits. Philadelphia and the team are ready to give their all. Yet Fail looks too focused and decides to act separately for a while. Nagi feels that something is wrong but trusts his comrade. While the group prepares to depart the next day, Nagi stops them. He pulls out a huge spirit stone glowing with pure energy. He explains they need an elite item of such a level for the Elven King to truly perceive them as spirit envoys. When the mission is officially launched, Nagi watches them leave and realizes the stakes have never been higher. Philadelphia and the team finally returned after their 2-month journey to the Elven Kingdom. They came but not alone. An incredibly ceremonious company followed them, making everyone's nerves slightly tremble. At the front is Wilrian Lanuja Finrelt, the true crown prince of the kingdom. Neji definitely broke out in a sweat from fear. He intended Philly to be just an envoy, not to drag the heir to the throne back with her. He realizes too late that Lunisha literally means crown prince in Elvish. Neji tries to figure out how everything escalated so quickly. Philly explains. As soon as they arrived, the royal guard almost forcibly escorted them to the palace, sensing through spirit stones the colossal presence of Neji. Next to such a great spirit for so long, the group completely petrified to the point that our guy truly understood how serious everything was. Neji admits that it also slipped his mind as soon as he realized. Now he must be more careful because he is drawing attention to himself from key world powers. The prince kneels on one knee and extends a letter from King Lucian himself. Though it sounds official, Neji feels the king's genuine desire to establish harmonious relations. He breathes a sigh of relief. Now they can finally establish a close connection between the two territories. The prince talks about zero delay in joint work and wants to hear Neji's position. Neji does not hold back. He lays out every last detail about the kingdom of Ludginus and the dark dragon Diazotis. He also reveals the truth about demons who pull the strings behind the scenes. The prince grimaces hearing about demons, and missing spirit mages feels like receiving a bunch of heavy debuffs. Nagi wants the elves to become a bridge and communicate with other great spirits in order to anticipate events. In response, the prince asks for a colossal favor due to the illness of the former king. Nagi only smiles ominously and extends a special vial of water, explaining that it is the very thing that lifted the curse from the literal dark dragon. The prince is completely exhausted, realizing that this is the medicine for the legendary forbidden curse. As soon as the elves clear the lobby, a new group of visitors arrives at the entrance. This time they are beastkin creatures, and without any hesitation, they address Nagi as the great spirit of water. Fail has returned again and brought with him several burly guards, such as Sharo. They have come from the Beastkin Federation to discuss a deal and strengthen their ties. Nagi is still trying to process the sudden influx of guests when one of the monsters is already beginning to shift into another form. A cloud of smoke disperses and the truth emerges before us. It turns out it is none other than Prince Farian, the third Prince of Judar, who fled from home and went wandering with this company. They moved the conversation inside the mansion to get down to business. Farron says that he has already informed his father about the power of Nagi. His servant is also 100% sure of Naga's divine nature because of the fierce barrier protecting the lake. Nagi is simply glad that they are finally on the same page. They immediately dive into the papers to finalize the alliance. The terms are clear. Nagi is considered a separate military unit, and he will not be required to provide additional reinforcements. Nagi adds a condition: he will not help if Judar becomes the aggressor in the war. They agree to protect each other's citizens and keep trade honest and moderate. This is a strong agreement without any loopholes. Both sides are eager to start working together. They seal the agreement with a handshake, firmly establishing a significant shift of power in the region. Nagi is already planning his next move to the village of Dragonkin, but the crew is worried. He is crossing a line. He wants to propose an alliance against the demons and establish their trade relations. The children promise to guard the lake while the boss is absent. Nagi insists that he must leave because there is someone he needs to meet in person. He meets again with the Dragon King group, specifically with Yona and Almina. After all the introductions are completed, it becomes known that Yona is Naga's contractor. Next, they plan to set out for the forbidden sacred place of eternal darkness. But before they leave, Nagi calls Formus for a private conversation. Formus looks as if he has seen a ghost and orders Nagi to be on alert. He drops a bombshell: you have overstepped with power. So Nagi is a newly born being, so his existence is unstable. If he continues like this, he might simply disappear. Nagi trembles with sweat because he fears he won't cope with the demons if he falls asleep. Formus explains, his soul is linked to the contractor, so they will wake him when the world truly needs him. He tells Nagi, it's time to trust your guys and sleep for a long time. Nagi finally understood. He cannot carry the entire server on his own. He watches as the children sleep and realizes that he has been trying to carry everything by himself all along. He reflects on his duty as a powerful being, but Yona catches him when he sleeps with his eyes open. Yona worries and tells him he needs to rest before he breaks down. When Nagi tries to speak, his body literally begins to turn into water before her eyes. His hands literally liquefy as soon as the mana drops to zero. Yona sees that he is completely exhausted and begs him to fall asleep. Nagi stubbornly insists that he must protect them, but Yona does not accept this. She says that by allowing them to help, he is actually making the city stronger. She reminds him of all the times he saved them and says that now it is their turn to repay him. She grabs his hands and begs him to stop, not to corner himself. She pleads, "Rely on us more." Glancing at her resolute face, Nagi understands she is right. He finally agrees to rest for at least some time. Nagi returns to the lake earlier than expected, leaving all the trade goods with Alamina. Helio cries rivers of tears but swears he will become stronger to be useful. Nagi orders Yoni to protect everyone while he is absent. He promises that he will eventually return to them. Likewise, everyone gathers around and prays for his recovery while the Great Spirit begins to fade. Nagi casts them one last look and completely dissolves. The water sparkles as he merges again with the lake. Yona tries to hold back tears as the boss logs out. "Good night, Mr. Nagi, until we meet again." A single drop falls on the surface, signaling that the long-awaited moment has finally come. Yona immediately feels a change in the air. Instincts scream that something grand is about to happen. With a barely audible whisper, he understands the truth. Lord Nagi has awakened. He does not waste a second, rushes to the source of that incredible power. It is the water that begins to boil and rise, showing the return of their leader in a literal surge of energy. Nagi comes outside, looking as if he hasn't aged a single day, and greets Yona with a calm smile, proof that our guy is finally back in the game. Even the dragon Belgius cannot contain his excitement. As soon as Nagi extends his hand to him, he behaves like a complete puppy. 5 long years have passed. While Nagi was forced to be AFK, the world did not stop, and the legendary Agatsuma arrives to report on the state of the kingdom. When they return to the manor, Nagi looks stunned. Skyscrapers pierce the clouds from nowhere, and it looks more like a modern city than a fantasy village. It turns out the dwarves took Naga's accurate remarks about the high building density literally, and thanks to their masterful crafting skills, built a concrete jungle. The city became a trade center, teleportation circles and underground passages connected everything around. But as soon as Nagi mentions demons, her attention immediately snaps to the spot. For 3 years, the demons played mad scientists, transforming monsters into absolute nightmares and terrorizing the continent. These are not some ordinary mob dumps. They almost wiped entire nations of herbivores and dragons off the face of the earth. Yona explains that even this city was under siege, but he rose higher as a top DPS and defended their home. But he was not alone. The water spirit Suiko held an impenetrable barrier so that civilians would be safe. Nagi truly prides himself on how much they have grown during this time, and Suiko shows. After the last battle, something terrifying was left behind. She shows a rough, obsidian black gem carved from one of the defeated monsters. Nagi takes the stone, and his face darkens as soon as he feels the corruption echoing from it. This is not just a random drop, it has the same cursed aura as the forbidden child, Diazotis. As Nagi examines it, the stone suddenly bleeds profusely with deep red, revealing its true form, a corrupted crystal of a fire spirit. The room chills as Suiko explains, these crystals are the hearts of spirits. That is, demons literally cut open spirits to fuel their war machines. It seems this was a weaker fire spirit, and it simply had no chance. Naga's hands tremble as he clenches the crystal, and his composed expression finally shatters into pure rage. "Attacking my village, maiming spirits, desecrating them, I will never forgive them," he declares, his eyes burning with cold fury. The overwhelming force of his deadly intent is so heavy that the children are about to collapse from the pressure. Seeing the tension, Agatsuma claps his hands to break the spell and suggests, "That's all for now, let Nagi restore his mana." Nagi seems to retreat, but the fire in his eyes does not fade. Late that night, Nagi thanks the old man for managing to settle everything before Nagi completely loses self-control. Agatsuma does not sugarcoat. He immediately asks Nagi to represent the spirits at the upcoming Union Council. This is a grand union with heavy artillery of humans, elves, gnomes, and dragons. Nagi hesitates. He feels that he is too out of context to lead the other great spirits. And Agatsuma already reveals that the spirits darkness, lava, desert, and thunder have already promised their blades to this cause. They made it clear they are supporting this union only because Nagi is the one at the head. When Nagi hears that the meeting is in 5 days, he is almost overwhelmed by the notification on day 0. Agatsuma insists that there is no time for training arc, and that Naga's presence is mandatory. Almost in 5 days, a huge teleportation circle flares up and comes to life. They enter the very heart of the Onashia Empire, a state that seems to have pushed the tree of magical technology research to its maximum. This place is an impregnable fortress, so it is the only sensible location for the World Summit. They enter the council hall. The air there is so thick that one could suffocate, even if you are a dragon. Again, all the key world leaders are present, and it is clear on all their faces that they are literally sweating with fear. Nagi notices a familiar face in Hiram, the right hand of the Dragon King, who looks as if he hasn't slept for a week. Hiramu admits he is already stuck in endless polishing, trying not to let the vengeful dragons run wild. Agatsuma takes the floor and reminds everyone the demon threat is no longer something to be postponed. He throws down the hammer and tells the kings, if they don't stop solo patrolling and start playing as a team, it's the end for everyone. King Venava of the dwarves raised the question that is on everyone's mind. What exactly does the solution to this problem look like? Agatsuma clenches his fist and declares, his vision sees that a full-scale war will break out in 3 years, and victory is the only option. The entire hall was instantly frozen by horror. A wave of pure fear swept over everyone together. Everyone remembers the legends of ancient wars. Even when the gods sided with them, the alliance still could not see the matter through to the end. That war left the world in ruins, and the demons were never fully driven out. Agatsuma tells them not to despair, but the historical trauma still painfully strikes each one. Nagi quietly listens while they discuss how that previous hero managed to defeat the Demon King. The kings try to wriggle out, insisting that demons shouldn't be as buff as in the Golden Age. They turn their gazes to Nagi and Hiramu and realize, when dragons and mighty spirits are on their side, a chance to fight appears. The mood changes instantly, and the whole room bursts into applause as soon as they convince themselves they can actually win this. But despite the celebration, among the crowd one man wears a very suspicious smile. Nagi immediately catches the guy's mood, and before anyone can blink, he casts a water prison and pins the man down tightly. But the hall quiets as the man struggles, crumpling under the swirling pressure of spirit magic. Other nobles think Nagi has lost his mind and demand an explanation for why he is attacking a person. And Nagi does not flinch. It is clear he felt such intense anger that no human is capable of having. As he speaks, the man's skin begins to melt like cheap plastic, revealing the terrifying, scarred face of a demon spy hiding among them. The interrogation begins with a cold demand to tell the truth. First, what is your name? This demon spy trembles all over as the crystal blade just touches his cheek. He tries to keep silent, but this room is full of top players who have no time for games. The old man warns, if you choose silence, first activate high-level executioner spells. The demon is struck by a lightning discharge, and he lets out such a scream that even a garbage rahan would tremble. Nagi Arbi is forced to resort to his healing magic, so the spy's health does not drop to 0, and then the torment will last forever. Aha, I will speak. I will speak, just stop, the spy sobs, revealing that he is Junus, an agent from the demon army. He was sent to gather information about the alliance meeting. His real mission was to investigate the great spirits and dragons. Nagi moves closer, exuding a terrifying aura, and asks, what are you going to do with the stolen spirit magics? He orders the spy, tell me everything you know. The truth is cruel. They brainwash mages and sacrifice spirits to fuel the dark ritual. To resurrect the Demon King, Junus screams so loudly that his face twists into a demonic nightmare. He starts laughing as soon as the body swells and bursts, mocking, they will all be cut down. Nagi has no delay, immediately deploys a barrier to contain the giant explosion. It turns out that Demon did not just kill himself, another demon remotely blew him up to keep him silent. Side characters completely lost self-control. They were gripped by fear because they realized they cannot defeat the legendary boss. The old man calms the panic and notes that the Demon King has not yet returned. They need to gather strength and build power while the enemy is not ready. Let's choose a hero, declares the old man, and he looks as if he is already ready to lead the world raid number 1. The council decides that the Holy Church Arnis will take on the ritual, and the meeting finally ends. Several weeks passed as the world prepared for the coming storm. A messenger named Donan arrives at the estate to deliver news that will change lives. He explains that 5 heroes were chosen through a divine prophecy. A child holding a spirit sword. He just looks straight at our guy's comrade and says, the very same Lord Yona. It seems the oracle is absolute, and these chosen heroes receive the sacred blessing and the sign of the gods. Yona unbuttons his shirt, showing the water divine sign glowing on his chest. The church wants to snatch Yona and take him to the Grand Cathedral for harsh power leveling. Nagi understands what this means. His contract partner is being taken away and he falls silent. Although Nagi is not exactly thrilled about the situation, Yona's gaze is full of determination. I will become the hero of water, he declares, striving to protect everyone he cares about. In 3 days, it's time to leave, and Yona says goodbye. The townspeople have mixed feelings. They know the church is involved, but they are happy for Yona. A little girl clings to him, crying and insisting how incredible her older brother is. Everyone cheers him on, shouting for him to give it his all. But Helios stands somewhere behind and looks completely broken. Yona accepts the star friend but does not know what to say. The gap in the social plane between the chosen hero and everyone else has become even greater. Nagiu watches the drama, feeling the tension in the air. When the sun sets, Nagi admits to himself that he will feel lonely without his friend. He notices how Yona sneaks out of the house in the middle of the night. Our guy decides to follow him in his spiritual form to find out what is happening. Yana meets Helio deep in the forest. Helio remains cold and asks what business I have with the hero of the Holy Church. He is clearly in pain, and he tells Yona that he does not want to hear any excuses. Helio admits he is happy that Yona tried for 8 years. But just now he explodes, shouting, "Why did you have to side with the Holy Church?" Nagi understands that Helio is right because the story here is dark. Dark elves were originally ordinary elves who were kidnapped by demons, and then transformed into a new race through vile experiments. Instead of helping them, the church declared them heretics and began cruel persecutions. Helio remembers how they were caught and driven away from every community until they came across Lake Neji. Helio cannot believe that Yona is joining the same people because of whom his race suffered so much. But Yona is not just pretending, he decided to go under their wing for a certain reason. "I have another goal," he says to his friend, and he looks him intently in the eyes, and reveals his plan, to force the Pope to cancel the accusations that dark elves are heretics. He knows the hero's request will definitely be heard, unlike the request of a half-elf. That was his plan from the very beginning. But Yona wants to change reality for the dark elves whom he loves so much. He wants to be like Lord Neji and save those who are unjustly humiliated. Helio trembles with tears, apologizing for having treated his friend so coldly. He swears, as long as Yona is absent, he will protect the city and Nagi with everything he has. "I will become stronger," he swears through tears. He tells Yoni to come back safe and sound. They seal the promise with a bra fist. Negi watches from the shadows and proudly sees how his guys clear the lobby of their own doubts. The day has finally come. Yoni's time to leave Lakeside Town and set off on the next quest. His family definitely feels the weight of this moment, reminding him that he always has a place to return home to. Yona does not go alone. Suiko also stays close to support him, while he swears to return as a true hero. It turns out Suku is not the only one who stands up for defense. A new spirit named Suko has just been born to protect the city. Before the party breaks up, Nagi gives Yona a mysterious gift. This is a completely new spirit sword, created specifically for how Yona grows because her old gear has already started to look like starter-tier weapons. Nagi wants him to hold these things dually to maximize the growth from training. To maintain their connection across the entire map, Nagi reminds. The contract seal gives Yona the right to call for help as soon as things become too dangerous. This is a grand buff because, as Nagi says, my strength is also Yona's strength. Donan takes the lead in guarding Yona while they prepare to set off. Suddenly Helio bursts in, running at full speed, all sweaty. He has been fervently praying for their safety all this time. The way Yona set out to save the world fired up Helio and Rudo. As they wave goodbye, Helio suddenly realizes he no longer wants to be a secondary character. He says directly to Nagi, "I want to become stronger." He wants to protect the team just like Yona does. Helio immediately starts his training arc and pours every drop of sweat into the spear competition. He pushes his work to the max every day, hitting targets to increase DPS. Rudo doesn't slack off either, diving into wind magic, so both can push each other to the limit. They keep their eyes on the prize, and Rudo even declares that he will one day beat his older brother. This peace doesn't last long because Agatsuma arrives, looking completely broken, and begs Nagi for help. He dropped a heavy selection of news. An ancient monster once sealed has broken free. The demons officially resurrected Cerberus, the legendary three-headed hellhound. The children are already on edge because they thought this creature was just a myth. This is not some trash mob, this is a world boss-level threat that tore everything apart during the Great War of Gods and Demons. Agatsuma admits that they really can't kill it, so their only condition for victory is to reseal the beast. Nagi doesn't waste time, he draws aggro onto himself, leaving Suiki to guard the home base while he goes to deal with the threat. They instantly teleport away, leaving the others behind. They land deep in the mountains, a place so remote that no one would notice the demons summoning the nightmare. If Cerberus isn't stopped here, the monster will rush straight to the nearest villages and completely wipe out all the lobbies. Hiromu and Yuki are already on site, they barely manage to scratch the monster. Nagi is introduced to the heavyweights Menafi, Rodo, Trix, and Vickald, who together make up the 5 sages. These guys are the elite mages of this world, from alchemists to binding masters. Even with all this firepower, the aura coming from Cerberus is pure rage. One of the sages even jokes about making this beast a pet, but quickly realizes this monster is on a completely different level. So Nagi gives the word to start preparations for sealing. Since this is a large-scale major ritual, activation will take a lot of time. Cerberus notices them and starts accelerating, forcing the group to act before it reaches civilian areas. Nagi orders everyone to prepare for the strike while he prepares to release a giant wave. He releases a whole stream of water that cuts through the air like a blade. The water crystallizes into sharp projectiles and rains down on the beast. The strike looks like a direct hit from a long distance. The projectile hit the three heads of the monster, stunning it for a moment. Hiramu tries to take off with an advantage, but Cerberus has a hidden trick up its sleeve. In the blink of an eye, the beast completely disappears from the battlefield. The beast rushes forward and sinks its teeth into Hiramu's arm deeper than he can react in any way. Hiramu is left lying and bleeding, trying to understand what kind of malfunction this broken mechanism has brought him. Nagi realizes the situation is critical. The beast is enveloped in toxic haze. Moreover, its spatial teleportation makes it almost impossible to try to take control of its position. The elders sweat, pressing the seal to the limit, pleading with begging eyes for just a few more seconds of cover. Nagi and Hiramu exchange a glance. It's time to stop dragging it out and unleash the fiercest Dragon Water tag team into battle. Cerberus is a real trouble. It can teleport and constantly spreads miasma everywhere. But Nagi is made differently. Her body consists of healing water, so she can actually touch this disgusting mob creature without getting infected. She thinks if she can withstand the petrification from the basilisk, then she can definitely endure some dog-like stinking cloud. Suddenly, a dark portal opens while the beast prepares to strike. Nagi does not hesitate and decisively crashes straight into the danger zone. Cerberus bursts out of the portal in the shadows, but our girl is already ready to draw attention to herself. She creates a huge water whirlpool to trap the beast. Then Germ encourages her while she pins the monster in place. It turned out that her water healing form is a tough counterchoice against muscle. Cerberus realizes it is losing and resorts to a dirty trick, trying to pull Nagi into another dimension. Jiromu dives inside to stop the teleportation, shouting as if about to burst, "Just let this not happen." Two dragons clash with the three-headed nightmare, pressing it to the ground while water splashes fly in all directions. The sage watches from the side and asks, "Are you two okay? The power of this fight is already reaching the limit. Everything is about to break loose." Nagi realizes time is slipping away and shouts back, "Don't make things up. If I let go, it will slip away." She invents a high-frequency perfect move on the fly, planning to turn into a water bullet to trap the beast. Germ is mortally afraid but calmly explains, "It's okay, I am water." She literally plans to use the shockwave of the breath attack to scatter her own body and escape from the seal. The countdown begins. The tension is off the charts. On the count of 2, Nagi completely enveloped the beast with her water prison. The sage roars from the scream as soon as the last signal sounds. A huge beam of energy pierces the water sphere and with zero delay presses Cerberus into the ground. When the smoke clears, only a small black sphere remains where the monster just was. Nagi reshapes her body, exhaling with relief. She was not caught in the indefinite ban of the seal. Nagi simply rejoices that everyone is safe, flashing a smile, one that shows the fight is finally won. She says to the group, "Thanks to you, we hit Cerberus right on target. This proves they are the best duo." Nagi is truly impressed by the success of the plan, especially the part where the beast was crushed by the pressure of water from the depths at sea level. When the threat is neutralized, the group decides it's time to regroup and meet up with the rest of the squad. The sages all wait, bowing their heads. They know that our guys just saved their lives. Jiromu asks if the monster has finally disappeared forever. The sage confirms it has been locked in an isolated space. They hide the sphere in a high-level vault, sealing it with ancient runes. The ladies are still in shock. They say the shockwaves from the fight reached them at a distance. One of the younger sages admits honestly that it was a terrible creature. This immediately adds a piece of lore. The sages are essentially the top players of this world who have honed magic to mastery over centuries. As the meeting comes to an end, Agatsuma says he is worried about what the demon clan is doing. One by one, the wise men leave the game, thanking Nagi and Hiramu for their carry. Everyone says goodbye and goes back to their zones. Even the elegant lady sage is ready to head home after that exhausting raid. Before the old lady sage leaves, she extends a special gift to Naja. This is a bottle of Evolut divine medicine that she herself mixed. This is essentially a cheat code. It is also called a wish drug, because it fulfills everything the user truly desires. She warns them, as long as they do not wish for the destruction of the world, everything will work. But there is a catch. It is a one-time use item. She admits she has already used her wish, so this potion is now pointless for her. Now she gives it to Nagi, because she trusts him to use this gadgeteer reward properly. Hiramu asks if he has a wish in mind, and Nagi is momentarily covered by deep thought. For a moment he wonders if he should use it to return to his original world. He remembers how he felt when he first arrived. He just wanted to relax and then return home. But when he looked back at all the friends he had gained, his thinking completely changed. He realizes he has no intention of returning, because he has already learned to love this world and the people who live in it. Hiramu admits that he also has nothing to say while they walk toward the sunset. Nagi asks the head of the sages to give one more thing before they leave. He looks for a top-tier spear but not for himself. He wants to give it to someone special. Fast forward to that night under the full moon. We see Helio diligently training, still trying to master his basic equipment. Neji approaches and suddenly appears before the boy, greeting him at home. Helio is simply glad to see that his mentor is safe and healthy. Nagi tells him that he brought a souvenir from the Cerberus raid. He extends the legendary spear, and the boy can hardly believe what he sees. And as soon as Helio's friend touches it, the weapon turns into a rusty piece of junk. The poor boy thinks he broke it, but Nagi explains the lore behind the spear Theoxis. This weapon was used by a legendary hero, and it shows its true power only when it recognizes its owner. He tells Helio, if he continues to hone and train, the spear will eventually acknowledge him and shine again. Helio is already fired up, swearing to give his all. Nagi tells the child to rest a bit, because recovery is also part of this polishing. When the day comes to an end, fluffy paws can be seen tamping the ground, kneading it. And finally, a warm shot. A white tiger and tiger cubs leaves of Cuba sleep peacefully, purring after a long day. Calm vibes, a luxury we cannot afford right now, as we gaze into the silence on the outskirts of the city. Our Nagi and the team just relax when a letter from Yona finally arrives. Nagi dives straight into the update to see how his former partner is doing in the big league. It turns out the kid is grinding here around the clock, 24/7, under the watchful eye of Lady Anya, the chief holy knight. He is not soloing, he is part of a hardened party, 4 other heroes blessed by the gods. We see the full list of top talent. There is Marshall, he has a cheat code for weather control. There is Kinya, a master of alchemy. And there is Menelis, she can actually create an entire forest with her plant magic. Then there is the absolute titan from the Renil group, a fire hero, whom Yona looks up to as the best example. Yona is firmly determined to reach that top level. He writes that he will definitely become a great hero. Returning home, the rest of the squad feels the pressure not to fall behind such a level of growth. Nagi is simply happy that the child is establishing good connections and is not yet broken by harsh training. The warm moment is interrupted when Philly arrives with a serious expression on her face. Score-obsessed Kreswav Academy, character First Iron Gate Reform School. She drops a huge sensation. Her team has uncovered a dungeon hidden deep in the forest. In this world, dungeons are essentially goth traps for rare resources, but at the same time a political nightmare. They can disrupt agriculture in every neighboring country. Philly played smart and did not let the news leak. She swore her entire scout team to absolute secrecy. She didn't even have time to look inside. She immediately ran to report to Nagi to get instructions first. Nagi begins to rummage through her imaginary wiki, recalling that dungeons come in 2 different types, natural and artificial. Natural ones are essentially mana oversaturation zones, which depending on the environment turn into fields or mountains. But artificial ones are much more insidious. They are built by dungeon masters as multi-layered towers or underground labyrinths. Natural spots are good for growing raw materials, but the legendary treasure is hidden in the artificial ones, and yet they are filled with deadly traps. Nagi understands. If it is a natural dungeon, states will quarrel over the harvest, but if it is artificial, it could be a trap set by demonic creatures. The very next day, they decide to circle the perimeter to understand what they are dealing with. When the group breaks through dense bushes, the air immediately changes mood. They have officially reached the heart of naturally formed dungeons. The landscape is simply impenetrable. The flowers are so bright and so large that they look as if a single glance at them could cause a poison debuff. All this is thanks to the insane density of magical energy that soaks the soil. Suddenly, Nagi notices something colossal, a tree with a faded ancient face carved directly into its bark. Philadelphia is on high alert, but Nagi immediately recognizes the creature. It is a treant, a legendary type of plant monster, usually calm and less provoked. These creatures are an almost extinct species. Humans have decimated them through excessive selection for magical staffs and their fruits that enhance power. Seeing that they have stumbled upon a true goldmine of rare materials, Nagi decides to return and calculate everything before this place becomes everyone's property. Under the crescent moon, the City High Council gathers to discuss the discovery. The leaders are shocked, such a huge mana vein was right next to home. The discussion heats up whether they should even try to clear the zone. Some participants already see huge profit potential from rare flowers and materials. The general opinion is this: it must be removed absolutely. However, Etna literally sweats with fear that the news will leak out. She knows human greed is no joke, and fears that other countries will try to seize their territory as soon as they hear about the loot. The room is split. They cannot exchange these resources without it becoming noticeable outside. A representative of Lamia suggests limiting trade only to their current allies to keep everything quiet. Nagi notices that Etna is too cautious. She is still wary because of how people behave with power. The elephant in the room basically tells everyone to relax, because no one would be foolish enough to provoke the great spirit Nagi. After a sleepless night, they decide to reveal the discovery only to the dragonborn Finrelth and the kingdoms of Judal. They know as soon as high-level items start circulating, secrets will not last forever. Instead of hiding everything and undermining trust, they will play a diplomatic game with their allies, while Nagi acts as the ultimate deterrent against any interference from other states. The next morning, a group of experienced fighters is sent as an official raid team. The kids just go crazy, they are not allowed to attend the party. Nagi will have to explain that deeper inside. There are probably high-level monsters capable of destroying them with a single blow. As a compromise, he agrees to take them to the outskirts for a bit of mob grinding to help protect the city. They are also dragging Balagius along for additional fire support. The children perceive this as a real big adventure. While everyone is warmed up, they start training. Ugly, stinking corpse blocks of trash mobs are already prowling in the darkness. Something big is definitely waiting for them in the tall grass, and you can hear that it is already ready to hunt. The team is in the forest at the training they so badly needed. Rato and Helio are working on their synergy. Suddenly, Rudo's hand trembles with spider sense. He catches a suspicious rustle in the thicket. Just as the threat has not yet appeared, Nagi orders everyone to duck and prepares a counterattack himself. Rudo does not hesitate, he shouts sharply, and unleashes a powerful stream of high-pressure water magic on the enemy. He is fully in a state of concentration and expends all his mana on this opening move. A pair of disgusting goblins receive a complete defeat from a sudden water burst. Helio immediately checks if Lord Nagi is okay, but our guy, as always, is calm. He is essentially quite impressed by how the kids are leveling up their combat skills. Nagi decides it's better to retreat, let the guys gather all the XP, but Balagius suddenly senses another presence nearby, lurking. More trash mobs are gathering at the supply line, and they are clearly not friendly. Nagi warns the group, if they get surrounded it's a one-way ticket, meaning game over, keep your distance. But Rudo notices, in the shootout besides the goblins there is something else. A pack of goblins has driven a defenseless victim deeper into the thicket, pinning it from all sides. It turns out to be a tiny winged creature, resembling a kitten, and it is clearly suffering from some very strong debuffs. Rudo is already ready to take aggro on himself to save it, although Helio warns about the tactical risk jumping straight into an ambush. Rudo cannot just stand and cry, if we don't hurry this child will die. Seeing his friends clearing the way, Helio decides to jump into the fight so they can free the lobby together. Nagi gives them the green light and promises to intervene if the situation becomes suspicious. The duo launches an attack without any delay. Rudo fires a water shot straight into the goblin's ugly face, while Helio maneuvers to finish it off with a spear. Helio goes all out, lands a precise strike that confuses the monster. The goblins start screaming wildly as soon as their health bars drop to 0. The last wave of magic rolls across the clearing, the kids give it their all. Rudo timely releases an elemental power explosion and finishes off the last homeless ones. When the area is cleared, the boys finally catch their breath and look around the battlefield. They rush to the fainted creature, and Rudo almost begs it not to give up. Nagi steps forward with a high-level heal, instantly closes the little one's wounds. Even when the physical injuries have disappeared, the creature still looks completely exhausted and without any energy. Rudo thinks it is just hungry and offers his own lunch to help it recover. The little fluffy one carefully sniffed the bread. Suddenly it snatches the food and rushes to the nearest cave entrance. The team decides to follow it to find out what is really happening in the darkness. They step over the cave threshold and hear the echo of creatures bouncing off the wet walls. Somewhere in the depths, the little one carefully throws the bread in front of a much larger figure. It tries to push the food back to its father, hoping they will have dinner together. It incessantly scratches and pokes the father, desperately demanding at least some reaction. But the truth is cruel. The father is nothing more than a cold skeleton decomposing. The realization hits the group like a truck as they watch the infant mourn its fallen relatives. The poor thing eventually falls from exhaustion and grief. Rudo completely loses self-control, frozen in shock, staring at the tragic scene. Nagi points to the harsh truth of the world. This child will not be able to survive alone. Helio senses alarm. What will happen if a wild beast is let into the city? But Rudo does not back down. He looks at the orphan and says, "This child is just like me." He remembers if Nagi had not intervened and saved him, he would have disappeared. Rudo begs Nagi to allow him to take full responsibility for the life of this little one. Seeing Rudo's determination, Nagi gives her blessing and trusts the boy's heart. They find time to build a proper memorial for the deceased father or mother, even with a small drawing on the stone. Rato radiates pride and declares that from now on he is the big older brother to the little creature. Then we switch to another training ground, and the heavy Gagnet simply shatters a powerful strike. The instructor, Ms. Ania, ends the session for Yona and Ranilla. The two boys are completely exhausted from the harsh drill and sit down to rest and recover. Yona is angry with his performance. Today he managed to score only 1 point against Raniel. During the sparrings, he is really impressed by how incredible Ranil is. Ranio responds with a compliment, acknowledging that Yona himself is already becoming a real beast. He says that Yona has a rare gift both in spirit magic and in fencing. Yona is glad that his efforts are finally yielding results. However, as soon as Yona swears to close the distance between them, Ranil lowers his gaze with deep melancholy as if much more is boiling beneath the surface. The silence in the manor is shattered by a sudden violent rumble. It echoes through the corridors. Rudo and our guy rushed to the source of the noise and immediately encountered chaos. Debris was flying everywhere. Hidden in the shadow of the furniture, a small tiger cub crouched with a growl. It looks as if it is ready to claw anyone who comes too close. But this is not just some stray kitten, it is a Eukaryan, a legendary species with white furred wings and a magical eye on its forehead, giving them unique, randomly distributed abilities. Nagi tries to keep his composure. He reaches out and pulls the little beast from its hiding place. And this cub, without any chill, immediately lunges forward and bites Naga's hand, while Rudo is in complete shock just watching. Sooner or later, Rudo still picks up this sharp, furry bundle, but he definitely takes a lot of chip damage because it continuously bites him. "Oh, don't bite me," he begs, although the little one is clearly just stunned by the new environment. Since there is no instruction on how to raise a legendary creature, the team simply acts blindly. Rudo realizes that they need professional help and suggests heading to the city to consult the best students of Agatsumi. They approached Neo and Lo, two researchers who look like they have spent more time with books than in the sun. Light, as soon as they hear the words Yukari on cube, their eyes light up as if they pulled a triple SSR in 110 pull. They explain that Eukaryans are so rare that their appearances are almost like myths, not to mention finding a baby. Nagi has to set boundaries and explain. The cube is still too wary for full scientific observation. The students are disappointed, but still agree to wait. They add lore they read from ancient texts. It seems these creatures are apex predators who rarely leave their territory. Their magical eye is a real game changer. It can apply debuffs like petrification, illusions, or even complete invisibility. To help the cubs settle faster, the students suggest they might need a specific item that helps bridge the communication gap. They waited for the dungeon expedition team to return, bringing rare materials to advance their medical research. Rudo desperately searches for a way to truly understand what the cube feels. Luel recalls the potion of beastly intellect, which works as a universal translator for animals. The only clue is that these materials are incredibly hard to obtain, and perhaps they are hidden somewhere deep in a dungeon. Meggy decides, as soon as the expedition team returns, they will immediately check the loot. For now, they return to check on the cub, and it still sits under the furniture like a true recluse. The food and milk were untouched, and the cube looks as if a bunch of serious mood debuffs were hung on it. Nagi tells Rudo to give her some space, knowing such a bond cannot be rushed. Rudo holds her head high and vows to wait until the little tiger finally opens its heart. The next day, Philly and the entire expedition team finally rolled back into the city after a successful run. She meets Nagi with a huge smile and displays the trophies so that any farmer would envy. They intercepted Oron nectar, a highly valuable ingredient for evolutionary elixirs. Nagi studies the sapphire leaf, a material of the highest grade, capable of erasing even the most stubborn evil curses. Philly begins to break down their dungeon strategy, explaining how they established a base to start grinding. Lower levels teamed with garbage monsters of the insect type, giant ants and mantises. Nagi spreads his hands in surprise. Why hadn't he encountered them before? But Philly explains the aura of great spirits probably made them hide. The team managed to gather a whole pile of poison and shells from those insects. They also ran into plant-type monsters. Dryads and Oranies quickly defeated them to collect more loot. These materials are extremely rare on the market, so the team holds a real gold mine in their hands. Neon, Neo, and Luol have stature, because that is how they can finally craft various high-level medicines. Philly believes there are about 100 monsters in the dungeon, and they will all eventually respawn, ensuring a steady supply of materials. Between trance and herbs, she classifies the dungeon as high quality. Nagi repeats the rank, finally realizing what value they have just accidentally found. He recalls the Guild for Dungeons uses a 2-level ranking system: difficulty and loot quality. Difficulty is divided into 5 levels from lowest to highest. Meanwhile, loot quality is ranked from poor to best. Since they are sitting on a high-quality gold mine, Nagi decides it's time to give this place a proper name rather than just calling it that dungeon. The students are all unanimously for it, and they ask their lord to give a name that suits its features. Nagi pauses for a moment and imagines the place. He thinks about bright flowers and that only a limited circle of chosen ones can reach them. He still remembers the giant plant monsters that guarded the groves. How about the secret domain of plant beasts, he suggests, and the team is simply thrilled by the vibe. As soon as they start planning the next expedition, Naga's gamer sense suddenly begins to tremble. He feels a sudden sharp, barely noticeable ripple in the air. A surge of spiritual energy flies into him, and his eyes widen. He realizes that something very terrible has happened. He feels that one of his condensed spirits is in mortal danger. These are not heavy fighters like Suiko or Yona, but someone much more vulnerable. It's Ru, the first familiar name he ever gave to help a young boy named Lumina, many years ago. We see Lumina already older, desperately trying to use water magic to protect himself. The village is being destroyed by monsters completely and mercilessly, and the screams of people tear the silence all around. Lumina is soaking wet from fear, while a terrible monster resembling a squid looms over him, pressing its shadow. The monster's aura is a complete nightmare, and the boy is paralyzed by fear as it prepares to strike. He tries to block, but the monster's strength tears everything apart, and he is thrown away as if shaken. When the monster is about to finish him off, Naga's presence emerges, like literally a god descending onto the battlefield. With one smooth motion, he creates a huge water sphere trapping the monster and protecting Lumina. With a nod of his hand, the water pressure crushes the monster and throws it back to the respawn screen in a bloody explosion. Nagi gently lands below, picks up a glowing fragment left by the beast, a smaller water spirit that had been corrupted. Lumina raises his gaze, tears streaming down his face as soon as he recognizes his savior. Nagi shifts his gaze to Ru. He looks incredibly bad after so many received blows. The situation is bleak. Wounded villagers lie all over the village, and Nagi releases a burst of healing light and the wounds heal instantly. People call it a miracle, but Nagi quietly signals Lumen to hide his true identity and keep everything in the shadows. Despite the rescue, the village is in a terrible state. Houses are leveled to the ground and the land is ravaged. Nagi surveys the ruins and his expression hardens when he realizes this cannot just be left as is. Narsha and Lumina's mother rushed outside, relieved their boy is in his body after that monster attack. Narsha has no idea about the man in the hood standing here asking, "Big brother, who is this?" Lumine pulls out a nostalgic bomb, realizing that his younger sister was very tiny when Nagi first saved them, so she doesn't even remember his face. Lumine keeps it professional, introduces him as Lord Nagi, the one who saved his life years ago. Everything changes abruptly when the village elders call a meeting and try to decide their next move. This is a harsh reality check for our guy. He watches as bodies are loaded away and realizes many didn't have plot armor to survive until his arrival. Nagi is just resting on a crate while Lu hangs nearby, waiting for Lumine to finish his business with the living among the survivors. Finally, Lumine catches up with him and apologizes for the wait. Nagi is interested in the growth spurt and the shining power, and he notices the connection it has with the little water spirit. He was struck that during that last fight, Lumina used real spirit magic. Lumina begins to remember how Louis was actually his guardian angel from the very day he met Nagi. Even when his mother accidentally cut her finger with scissors, Lou was already in the shadows doing his job. His mother always thought it was just some random mercy of the spirit and never guessed that the real MVP was standing right there. Lumina had dreamed for years to finally see and thank the spirit who kept his family healthy. On his 7th birthday, he finally drew the legendary lot. A mysterious mark appeared on his hand, and he was finally able to see the cute face of Lou. It was then that the merchant Philly passed by and things got really interesting. Philadelphia, being an elf, immediately noticed the spirit and the contract mark on Lumina's right hand. She was genuinely happy and said, "Maybe your feelings broke the bond and it happened naturally." Philly is not just some random NPC. As an elf, she can use spirit magic even without a contract. She offers to teach Lumin other wisdoms so he can become a top mage like Nagi. Returning to the present, Lumina clenches his hands and still feels like some low-level loser player because he still couldn't solo clear that last boss. He describes the monster as if it is on a completely different level, not like anything he has ever seen. Nagi reveals a dark secret. It was a crystalline water spirit creature that demons transformed into a killing machine. The demon threat is growing worldwide, and even remote villages like this one are now becoming targets. Naju looks Lumina straight in the eyes and says, "If Lu is like his own child to him, then Lumina is just as important to him." He tells the child, "If you ever get into trouble, rely on me." Lumina does not hesitate. She bows her head and pleads, "Lord Neji, save this village." It is terrible to watch him break down in tears, explaining that they have lost so many people, and their food supplies are completely destroyed. He trembles all over, thinking about how his people will die of hunger if another wave of monsters hits them. The situation is terrible. Only about 20 men remain to protect a bunch of injured women and children. Nagi knows he cannot just move them to his like the Dark Elves. They will lose their peace seeing people enter their domain. He makes a call to decisive action, placing his hand on the head of the crying boy. He promises to support them so they can rebuild their home from scratch. Nagi understands. If some random stranger just starts giving things away for free, the peasants might suspect trickery. He decides to show his true form as a great spirit to make the transition easier. The next day, Lumina brings him to the village elder and Nagi drops a bombshell. "I am Nagi, the great spirit of water." To confirm his words, Lumina explains. Nagi was the one who years ago cured his mother's deadly illness. The crowd freezes, amazed, wondering why a true god would go out of his way for them. Nagi keeps a modest tone, saying he is just fulfilling a contract that Lumina made with her familiar. They arrive just in time. A support squad approaches with carts full of trophies. Philadelphia and a burly dwarf named Garu jump out ready to take on everything, from supplies to building repairs. Seeing the cavalry arrive, the whole village falls prostrate a full kowtow to show their respect. Nagi tells them to calm down and raise their heads. Food is more important than his pride. He puts the village elder in charge of distribution because he does not know the local layout. When the peasants start eating, the mood instantly flips from despair to hope. Lumina approaches Nagi, feeling a bit bitter because she revealed his secret identity to everyone. But Nagi is indifferent. He is simply happy to see Lumina's family healthy and having things to be thankful for. Even Naga's younger sister Nasha finally remembers the spirit who saved her when she was a baby. No one gives her sincere advice to stick together and support each other as a family, and she responds with the biggest smile. Suddenly, a loud rumble breaks the moment Garrod begins to smash the house. Nagi like, what are you doing? This house could still be used. But the gnome has bigger plans, boasting a blueprint that shows a large-scale improvement of the village's architecture. Now all you can do is sweat from the gnome's enthusiasm for a complete reconstruction. As the sun sets over the ruins, the restoration gains momentum, and hope finally sprouts in the village.